Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Um, my name is Preston Jacobs. I am here in Santo Domingo. We are talking about ice and fire and anything else that may come up today. So let's talk about our topic at hand, which is it is, as someone said, a very specific kind of thing, but maybe not so specific in the grand scheme. I mean, fans do talk about this, and the reason fans talk about this is that Archmaester Walgrave is introduced in the prologue of A Feast for Crows, and then we then kind of get this idea that perhaps because he's an Archmaester and his name is Walgrave, that that perhaps he could be the father of Maester Wallis. In A Dance with Dragons, Lady Dustin talks about a maester named Wallis who was influential with Rickard Stark and orchestrated the Southern Ambitions strategy, which is essentially trying to convince the Great Lords to intermarry, seemingly to create an alliance to eject the Targaryens, and that the Archmaesters of the Citadel, the Maesters of the Citadel, had a conspiracy to get rid of the Targaryens, and that it was his idea to try to marry off Brandon Stark to Catelyn Tully, and likely Robert to Lyanna, Ned fostered with Robert in the Vale. Essentially, you have the Robert's Rebellion alliance before even the war. And on top of this, we have talk of Tywin bringing Jaime to the Riverlands to marry Lysa and things like this. That this Southern Ambitions strategy was going on before this. And so if it comes through Maester Wallis, and keep in mind that Maester Wallis, it says that he was kind of being controlled by his father and his old town masters, that we can point to, if it is true that Walgrave is the father of Wallis, big if, because it's just based on Wall, but nonetheless, and this idea that, you can figure it out, figure out who the parents are to these bastards and these maesters, anyway, that we could learn more about the conspiracy and Southern Ambitions and what the Citadel was doing by looking at Archmaester Walgrave's life. And so there's this weird scene in the prologue where Pate goes in to steal the key that Jaqen H'ghar wants. Now, keep in mind that the prologue of A Feast for Crows was written rather late in the story. Originally, George R. R. Martin wanted the Ironborn chapters of A Feast for Crows to be one gigantic prologue called Arms of the Kraken, and it would jump from Aeron to Asha to Victarion, and that was going to be the prologue, like a 250 page like prologue. Was the original idea. Originally, they only knew the POVs that would be in A Feast for Crows were going to be Cersei and Brienne, and we would have this massive Ironborn prologue. And eventually, George decided that prologue was just too big, and so he broke them into actual like POV chapters for the book. And so he had to write a new prologue. And so the new prologue was written fairly late. Like A Feast for Crows is published in 2005, and but I think he doesn't even get to writing it until late 2004, early 2005. Like it's so we do have a few versions of the prologue. George had some trouble with it, but this is the passage that I'm talking about here. And the reason we're looking into it is to see what it can possibly tell us about Archmaester Walgrave, and can we glean anything into Southern ambitions from it. Now, I can say that the fans have been really unsuccessful in deciphering this. There's no really good theories on it. So, now also keep in mind that in the original prologue, the Maesters, Pate was going in to steal a glass candle, and that it was changed to a key very, very late in the final. But nonetheless, we get this scene. Inside, Pate had found a bag of silver stags, a lock of yellow hair tied up in a ribbon, a painted miniature of a woman who resembled Walgrave, even to her mustache, a knight's gauntlet made of lobstered steel. The gauntlet had belonged to a prince, Walgrave claimed, though he could no longer seem to recall which one. When Pate shook it, the key fell out onto the floor. Now, these are Walgrave's keepsakes. All right, Walgrave is incredibly old. Okay, so we know he's incredibly old for a couple reasons. One, he seems to be a contemporary of Cresson, and Cresson is nearly 80. So he's somewhere in that range. But also, if he is the father of Wallis, Catelyn was like betrothed when she was 12, so it's like the year like 272 or so, something like that. And so that means the son, Maester Wallis, needs to have forged his chain and gotten sent to Winterfell. So Wallis, can't really be younger than, say, 25. Like, think about it, because you're at the Citadel and you got to forge all your chains, and then you have to be old enough that you can actually be influential. Like, I understand that like some people are at the Citadel at 12 and maybe you could forge a chain by 17. Like, yeah, but then you're not influential. You're a kid, right? So you have to be old enough to command some sort of respect, but also so Wallis can't be younger than like 25. So that means Walgrave is fathering Wallis like sometime around the year like 250, so but that means if he's fathering him around year 250 and he's an archmaester, so I mean, it's a little ambiguous whether he was an archmaester when he fathered Wallis or after, but the text says like, oh, he had an archmaester for a father. You're like, what does that mean? Like a Hightower. I think they said Hightower girl for a mother. I want to look at the because that actually changes it. Because if you say Hightower girl, then you're saying at the time of the fathering, because the girl is going to become a woman, and then you would say woman. Let me get that quote really quick. Yeah. It says here, Wallis had a Hightower girl for a mother and an archmaester of the Citadel for a father. So he had to have been an archmaester at the time of fathering Wallis. Because you wouldn't, because if you're saying like later he becomes an archmaester, they would have said a Hightower woman, because she would have grown into becoming a woman. But no. So now we're talking like, how old is Walgrave? If assuming he is the father of Wallis, and we're just going to assume this. So if he's having him at 50, like let's say he's 40, because he has to be old enough to get the archmaester status, right? So if he's 40 and 250, so he's like 90 in the contemporary story. Like, ugh. So, nonetheless, it's important to figure out his age because we're talking about these mementos, okay? This guy is in his 90s probably, based on these ages, because he has to get to the point of being an archmaester, and then and based on the ages of Wallis and everything. So based on the ages of Wallis and getting to the point of being an archmaester, because it just doesn't make sense that he'd be an archmaester in his 30s. Like, that just seems too young. Okay, so let's say he's an archmaester in his 40s, and he's fathering this girl, fathering with Wallis with this girl, and then so he is, we're saying that Walgrave is in his 90s here when Pate is dealing with him, like, let's say early 90s. So these are the mementos of his entire life. 90 years on the planet. And these are like the most important things he owns. And there's not many of them when you think about it. Like, think about your own house and how much junk you have. Like those drawers of junk where you open it up and it's like an expired college ID and you're like, oh, should I keep this? And you throw it back in with that battery that you're not sure has power or not. And, thinking like, it's just in that drawer, So this is his drawer, his little lockbox of like mementos, right? So what he has in there is a bag of silver stags. Hard to glean much from that. I mean, we know that a bag of silver stags was found with the cat's paw, and again, also George R. Martin might just be writing fucking random shit for color. Like, he might not actually put any thought into this, but let's assume he did. So now we get a lock of yellow hair tied up in a ribbon. Now this is the thing where you say, okay, we know that people keep hair as a memento from people that they care about. Okay. And generally speaking, like, at least in Ice and Fire, we do have the example of Dunk keeping Rowan Weber's braid. And and the Sworn Sword was only written, a year and a half, 2 years prior to the prologue. So he could just be repeating this idea of keeping hair of a romantic interest. And really, when you think of hair, like, okay, maybe Walgrave also has a daughter and he's keeping but now you're having 2 bastard kids in the story. It seems logical that this is a romantic interest, that this is the hair of a romantic interest, I've never felt the need to keep a lock of my mother's hair, so it just seems like that. So, and yellow hair, we know that Lyness Hightower has golden hair, right? Looks like Daenerys. So it could very well be the hair of the Hightower girl. So that seems to fit. That if Walgrave is the father of Wallis, that he's kept a lock of the Hightower girl's hair. So next we have a painted miniature of a woman who resembled Walgrave, even to her mustache. Now, the woman resembling Walgrave means it's a Walgrave relative. I mean, obviously, this could be a wooden miniature of, again, a daughter, maybe a sister, maybe his mother. And in fact, in the original long prologue, I think it is a faded miniature of an old woman. In the original text that George changed. Now, maybe George changed it because he wanted to change its meaning. Maybe he changed it because he didn't like the rhythm of how it sounded. Let me look up for a second. I want to read the text to see if he's changing it. Changing it because it sounds better, or if it changes it because of the meaning. Let's see which one sounds better. The original text, he says, of the long prologue. Inside the old man's meager treasures, a bag of silver stags, a lock of yellow hair tied up with a ribbon, a faded miniature of an old woman who resembled nothing so much as Walgrave with teats. And he changed that to a painted miniature of a woman who resembled Walgrave, even to her mustache. Yeah, I think he shortened it so it didn't sound as clunky. I'm going to try one more time. The original, a faded miniature of an old woman who resembled nothing so much as Walgrave with teats. A painted miniature of a woman who resembled Walgrave, even to her mustache. I'm going to say that the change was because it flows better. But that the meaning is still there, that originally it was supposed to be a faded miniature of an old woman. And so I'm going to say that the second thing is really his mother. I'm going to go so far and say that makes sense to me. And finally, a knight's gauntlet made of lobstered steel. The gauntlet had belonged to a prince, Walgrave claimed, though he could no longer recall which one. This is a toughie, right? So by the way, originally in the old long prologue, when I say long prologue, George wrote several versions of the prologue. He wrote a short prologue, a long prologue, a Rosie prologue, a prologue from Rosie's perspective, and then we have our published one. The long prologue has other elements in it, but in the long prologue, the gauntlet belongs to a prince and it's chased with gold. That doesn't tell us too much more. Obviously, a prince would be someone that's fabulously wealthy, so when he wears armor, it's going to probably be chased with gold. That said, the go-to prince here that a lot of fans think the gauntlet belongs to is Oberyn Martell, because Oberyn studied at the Citadel. The problem with that idea is that Oberyn doesn't wear lobstered steel too much. At least we didn't see him in his fight. He wore light armor. Now, he is a jouster. He would probably wear heavy armor when he jousted. So maybe. But stuff being chased with gold, those tended to be, I'll tell you that in the text, people's armor being chased with gold tends to be really showy, flashy characters. So it tends to be Kingsguard, and it's also the King or Loras Tyrell or something like that. Do we think Oberyn Martell would care about having a gauntlet that had, that was chased with gold when a lot of his armor before is copper colored and bronze and things like that. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like Oberyn to me. And here's the other thing about Oberyn. Say you're Walgrave. You've lived this long life now, meddling in the affairs of lords and kings and things like this. And would you be impressed by this fairly young Prince Oberyn Martell who had come to the Citadel and said, "Hey, have my gauntlet"? And would you go, "Oh, I'm just going to keep it"? I don't know if you'd be too impressed, And especially, it's got to be on the same level as a lock of the love of your life and a miniature of your mother. So it's got to be really important, right? It can't just be Oberyn. Unless Oberyn was really integral in the Southern Ambitions plot and was really thinking planning stuff, I just don't think it's on the same level. But then it leads to well, who could it be? Like, why would you love this gauntlet? And the gauntlet is really mysterious to me because if he is 90, and then he's in his 40s when he's well, one thing is eventually he schemes to get rid of the fucking Targaryens. So why is he praising a Targaryen gauntlet? I don't, it's like, I don't know. Does he respect any of the Targaryens if he tries to kick them out? Like, why would he keep this memento? The other thing is that for the specific period of time, like, let's say he kept it from like a young age. He got this at a young age and he was super impressed. Like, he got it in his teens or 20s. The problem is that, like, we don't know very much about that period of time, because we're talking now, it's like, are we like in his youth, we're talking like the 230s, the 220s, the 230s. So what would like, what's going on in that period of time? I'm trying to think, like, could it be related to Dunk and Egg? Because again, so the Sworn Sword was not written that far behind this prologue. Let's see. Like, but we're dealing with, like, could it be I'm looking at, like, people Egg's age and such, that where he would get a like, could it be Prince Maekars or something? No, well, he was king, but let's say, would he be impressed with Daron the Drunkard, or Arion Brightflame, or Aegon, or Eggs? And if he were, like, if it was Eggs, wouldn't he say it was a king's, or he'd remember it was a king's? It almost, in a sense, has to be a forgettable prince. But, the only prince that I kind of feel is somewhat forgettable is, like, Daron Targaryen, the son of Egg. Like, he was the unmarried guy who everybody thinks was gay, who fought the rat, the hawk, and the pig, and we know nothing about him, So, maybe just like, he lives in the right time period. So he was born 228 to 251. So maybe he, in taking down the rat, the boar, and the pig, or like the rat, the hawk, and the pig, like, he lost a gauntlet or something. So the gauntlet is the biggest mystery to me, because nobody really fits it. No one really fits. Like, he's got to be somebody that impresses Walgrave, but at the same time, like, whose story would involve him, considering he's like an archmaester. I mean, maybe he was in the field when he was in his youth. I don't know, but, like, it's odd. Anyway, maybe people have some ideas. I'm sure it'll come up here. Some people, there's some crazier theories out there that Walgrave is actually would dress up as a woman, and that the miniatures of him dressed up as a woman, and that he's the one that, like, got involved with Hothar Umber and stuff, and because of but Hothar Umber supposedly, like, killed the sex worker that turned out to be a man, and things like that. But there's some funny theories with regards to all of this. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if any of you guys have any good ideas about it. But it does sound like there's never been a good fan theory on these items. Like, everyone kind of says, yeah, sure, the hair is his lover, the Hightower girl, who, by the way, there's no one in the story who's the right age that's a Hightower that could be the woman. Okay, like it's some girl before everybody that we hear about. It's not the Mad Maid. It's none of that. Okay, so they're not in the right time period. You know, she's got to be a girl around the time of the 250s or whatever. It's so anyway. What about Maester Aemon? The problem is Maester Aemon goes to the Citadel when he's like 12. He's never knighted. I don't think he's ever been trained as in that. So, but yeah, I'm sure some people have some good ideas here. I'll keep an eye out. Would you ever release the fanfic to LibriVox? So for those that don't know, I had to look this up. LibriVox is a audiobooks for public domain works. And here's the thing about the fanfic. The fanfic is already public domain. Okay, anybody can take it and do whatever you want with it. I don't own it. Nobody owns it. Okay, we don't make any money off it. Like they're the unmonetized videos. It's fanfic for the public. Yeah, anybody can take it. Anybody can take my audio of it and do whatever. It's, you know, so that's that. I will say that like the sample chapters though are George R. R. Martin's, you know, so putting it all together, I doubt anyone would. LibriVox is not that big. I doubt anyone would catch it or notice, but yeah, it's. I mean, people are welcome to do what they want with it, but yeah, I think the weirdness is that there is George's sample chapters in between that would interrupt the story of what's like, you know, that what we just kind of created for free. So been into the world of Ice and Fire. Do you think the oily black stone found around the world will ever be plot relevant, or is it just world building? I don't think. Well, one, I don't think another book is coming out. But if I did think that it was plot relevant, it would be at the very end of A Dream of Spring, which is absolutely 100% not coming out. Generally speaking, I think the oily black stones are just a hint that the past in A Song of Ice and Fire is unknown and the histories are wrong, and that there was a futuristic society before the medieval society that we see. And we know there was a futuristic society. Now, if you want to say that it was technologically super futuristic or magically futuristic, you know, pick it. But like, clearly the people today couldn't build a wall. Clearly the people today couldn't build Storm's End. So it is just an absolute fact that they are more technologically advanced in the past than they are in the present. All right, that's just straight up fact. Whether they are magically technologically advanced or scientifically technologically advanced, that's up in the air, you know. But I think the black stones are just elements that there was an older society back then. Now, I will say, I think in the long prologue, because this comes up, I have to, I can't believe the long prologue keeps coming. I mean to do a video on the long prologue. Let's see here. Because this is relevant. All right. So here, I'm going to bring up the long prologue for a second, because this has to do with the oily black stones. Here's the long prologue. And so this is Pate's original description of this. Now, keep in mind that like the long prologue, the original long prologue, a lot of elements are abandoned. Like I say, like originally, it involves glass candles. Glass candles grant the user immortality, all sorts of stuff. And a lot of the text and a lot of the stuff has been pulled out and shoved into Sam 5, either through the perceptions of Pate are ripped out and shoved into perceptions of Sam, dialogue from Walgrave and such, and from Jock and Agar are ripped out and shoved into Archmaester Marwyn. Like so this is one of these things where Pate is describing the city, and later a lot of this is ripped out and given to Sam in Samuel 5. But he gives a description of and then this original long prologue, it's very clear that this was provided to Elio and Linda for the World of Ice and Fire. But here, this is the relevant passage that I'm talking about here. He's talking about the High Tower. 3 castles piped one to the other, then a sept, 2 drum towers, a watchtower, and a beacon was how Aleros described it. The base of the High Tower was a colossal square of fused black stone with walls 50 feet thick and 100 feet high. Marwyn the Mage claimed it was the remains of an ancient Valyrian fortress. Archmaester Periston said that the giants had raised it. The small folk named Bran the Builder. The second keep sat atop the first, its gray granite walls supported by massive buttresses. The third tier was of the same, smaller still. Now, this has changed a bit, okay? Because in the story, there is a difference between Valyrian fused stone, which like we find on Dragonstone, and oily black stones, right? So, I mean, so we have a lore change here, which makes me think that, this is not some sort of like grand fundamental thing that George was planning from the beginning or anything like this, okay? Clearly at some point he was saying that, our history is wrong. The Valyrians might have raised Old Town, and this is Valyrian fused stone. And then this eventually evolved in the World of Ice and Fire to oily black stone, meaning, making it even older than Valyrians and weirder. So in many ways, the spirit is still there, that we have this unknown lost history of when things were technologically more advanced. And it first was attributed to Valyrians, and then this is like shifted to oily blackstones, which is like an older society than that even. So, anyway, that's kind of the relevant part. But I don't think that we'll ever find out about it. I mean, we if he was going to mention this like futuristic society, it would be like at the very end, we get to like the mystery of the God's Eye, and we find out what's really fundamentally happening with Westeros and why the seasons are off and all the grander mysteries right there. But also remember, like this was text that was changing. Like it was originally Valyrian fused stone, and then it was changed to oily black stone, and that this kind of stuff is, in flux to add color. And so it's, it might be, it might be mentioned. Like I say, it's just relevant in that there was an older society that probably built the wall and things like that, or not. I don't know. The wall's built much later, actually. So I don't know, not even involved in the wall, but it's just that there was an old thing. Is Tysha at Lannisport or Casterly Rock? I understand that Quinn the GM released a video today where he kind of believes that that sending Tysha off after she had been fucked by Tyrion for 2 weeks in a married situation. His theory is that that's a liability, that she could go off and have a child, and it would be trueborn, and they would eventually inherit the rock, legally speaking. And so it's, that's an intriguing idea. I don't know if George really thought about it, like I said, the Tysha story in the first place is a very sloppy story. It's clearly something George came up with really fast, because when you think about Jaime Lannister in that story, what the fuck is he doing? Like, what the fuck is he doing? Caving to his dad after he's already rebelled against his dad and is a Kingsguard, and why is he even in the Westerlands and hanging out for weeks? Like it's the story has so many plot holes, right? So like, could Tysha be taken by Tywin and kept, and then in order to make sure that she doesn't have a kid and try to claim Casterly Rock at the same, in the same sense as Jane Westerling was kept so that no one could claim that she had the heir. She had Robb Stark's kid. I think that if I were to try to be like poke holes in the theory, I would say, okay, well, taking the Jane Westerling thing, they didn't plan on keeping Jane Westerling her whole life. They just kept Jane Westerling. They make her take some moon tea and keep her long enough that the time period is like doesn't fall together. You only need to keep the person imprisoned for 4 months. You don't need to keep them in prison for years and years and years, and then you can get rid of them. In fact, I'm surprised Tywin just didn't kill her. That seems like what you do, So, all in all, I think the Tysha story is sloppy. George didn't think about it that much. But, if you're gonna have Tysha around, like, you don't need to have her taken care of for decades. You can give her some moon tea and send her out the door. So I don't know. I think Tysha. I think Tysha probably went to became a sept or something, or became a septa or something, would be my guess. I don't know. I understand, people wanted to be relevant in the story and show up in Bravos or something, and be the character that Darian, the woman that has to get married every time that Darian meets in Bravos, the sex worker that marries everyone that she gets with. I mean, that's an interesting one too, but I think the boring story, the most logical thing, is that she just went to be a septa. That's about it. Hi, Preston. Interested to hear your thoughts on the ramification of the U.S. for the U.K. rest of the world. So as you know, I think America's pretty fucked right now. Like I don't know how the country is going to make it through 4 years. It's really a dark time. Now, for the rest of the world, America can stand as a beacon of travesty, that people can look at us and be like, oh my God, let's not do that. That is horrible. Now, my fears are that the billionaire oligarchs are going to start meddling in elections everywhere, which Elon Musk is trying to do. However, I'm hoping that the rest of the world will see how screwed up America is in all of these choices, and choose better leaders because of it. And we do kind of see that. Like, I think we saw it last time too. Like, It's not that one country goes right wing and then the rest of the world goes, let's go right wing too. It's kind of like one country goes one way and then people get scared of that movement, and there's a teeter tottering situation. So I'm hoping that'll happen. Um, Look, it's going to be bad in the sense that Trump is going to tank the U.S. economy and probably put up tariffs and things like that, and that hurts everybody because hurt the economics is it's mutually beneficial. The rising tide raises all ships. Well, falling tide is going to sink all ships too. So, but there's a lot of the damage is going to be the worst in the Middle East and Ukraine. um, I think that Europe is going to have to step up and give more assistance to Ukraine. Europe is probably going to have to step up and increase their military funding and to hold off the Soviet Union and things like that, Russia. Um, uh, but for the most part, it's looking really dark. It's looking. I mean, it hasn't even been 1 week, and all of the horrible shit that's happened so far. It's just so a lot of it can be undone because there were illegal acts in the first place, but like it's exhausting because you have to like put out so many fires. Like people have to put out so many fires. And just, it's just sad like pulling out of the Paris Accord or like cutting all foreign assistance because the thing about US foreign assistance is some people says, oh, why is America putting their fingers in all other countries? And it's like, yeah, you can say that kind of sucks, but at the same time is like when America isn't there, the void brings in Russia, China, Iran. And so US foreign meddling is there mainly to prevent Russian, Chinese, and Iranian foreign meddling. And so if US pulls off foreign assistance and acts like an absolute idiot with regards to diplomacy, well, guess who shows up? The Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, and they get a foothold. And so it's it's like we want the rest of the world to like step up too. Unfortunately, the rest of the world follows America's lead when it shouldn't. Like, it could do stuff without America, but hopefully the U.S. will be just an example of just idiocy and to go the other way. But that's my hope. I don't know. This is a pretty general thing, but general question. But I have more specific stuff. But yeah, more specific complaints. But the man, the myth, the aggro. Thank you, man. The myth, the aggro. Oh, have we a definitive answer between Maester, Arch, and Grand? Grand Maester is just the Maester in King's Landing that advises the king. That's the only thing the Grand Maester is. And then Archmaesters are seemingly the teachers and administrators of the Citadel in Old Town, who each have rods and masks and have access to an underground chamber beneath the Citadel and all sorts of stuff. But so I mean, Arch seems to be the teachers, leaders, administrators. Grand is simply the dude in King's Landing, and Maester is just everybody else. Now, the thing that's kind of unclear is what Maesters in Old Town do versus Maesters in the field. Like what's the difference between what they do. One maybe is one more academic scientific research, while others are diplomacy and advising, but it's hard to say. Could dead things in the water foreshadow wights attacking Skagos while Davos is there? Skagos isn't too far from Hardhome. that is an interesting idea. Let me see here. Let me try to figure this out for a second. What's the best? I'm just looking at the best picture here. So say we have Skagos here. Now, many people pointed out that Skagos actually extends further north than the wall. Like maybe that's relevant. The thing is, if you were an undead zombie, would you go all the way to this island versus just hopping around the wall right there, or on the other side, like hopping across that bay there? You know, like, I'm not sure what strategic advantage there would be to Skagos. I mean, I would love to have the others or something in Skagos. I don't know, something interesting. Still haven't figured out what I want to do for that with that Skagos story. I think about it every day, like, because I want to do the chapter call for Davos, and it's just like figuring out what we could do with them, and figuring out the timeline and everything. Dead things in the water. I don't know. I mean, so the other thing about like ships here, because they don't have sextants yet, right? They tend to not go very far from shore. And that was a big deal when Euron attacked his Shield Islands, that he actually was past the horizon and things like that, far from shore, which was weird. Like, does he have a sextant? You know, but so when they're traveling, like Cotter Pike and such, I can't see why he would get near Skagos. Like what benefit that would be for him when he would just be following the coast up. So I don't know. I mean, as much as I would love to have others or something enter the story really quickly and have them involved, I'm trying to think, like, it does seem pretty far, and like why would they go to the Skagos when they could hop around the wall much easier and do other things much more easily? I mean, it'd be fun and all, but I just can't. How would they get there? Maybe if they get on a ship? I mean, it would be interesting if they got on a ship and they sailed the ship, but they wouldn't go past a certain point on the island. That would be like dead things on the ships. Do you think could a wight sail a ship? Probably have a better chance of sailing a ship than mutes. I ever tell you Walgrave is like Maester Aemon old. I ever tell you I once had a fan like screaming at me like, no, like mutes could easily like sail a ship through hand signals and whistles, and it's like, no, like, you're holding ropes. How are you doing hand signals while doing all your ropes and whistles? Like, no, like, you ever been in a sailboat? It's just people screaming at each other all day long. There's a good idea. Kyle, Father of Bears, says that the gauntlet implies that the prince it belonged to yielded in battle. Any theories it could be? Keep kicking old school, keeping it real. Yeah, that's interesting. That the gauntlet was a yielding. But then, like, why would Walgrave has it? Throwing down the gauntlet means to start a battle. Huh. Yeah, just what happened to the other gauntlet? What happened to the other gauntlet? Why would Walgrave get one? It's a valuable thing, right? It's got to be really strong memento, right? Up there with a lock of his lover's hair, you know. So, the prince yielded. Do you yield by handing over a gauntlet? Holding up, throw down the gauntlet. Is there something in the, am I forgetting the, like, the yielding by taking off a gauntlet? Too many yields. Too many yields in the story for me to search. Too many yields. Damn. Yeah, I would love to know the context of when, like, someone hands over a gauntlet for yielding. If anyone knows. Yeah, how do you see? Read my mind, John Sweeney. How does one end up with one gauntlet? I mean, I know how Jaime Lannister ends up. Daemon Blackfires, Bittersteels. That's the thing, is it has to be somebody that you'd kind of forget. Could it be Rhaegar's gauntlets, a trophy? The thing is like, you'd think that if it were like some sort of black gauntlet or something, that would come into play. Instead, he says, like, lobster gauntlet chased with gold, a prince, you know? So I almost want to say, like, it would be a Kingsguard, but it's the only Kingsguard, because the original was chased with gold, but is the only Targaryen to be Kingsguard, the only prince to be a Kingsguard, Aemon the Dragon Knight? But he's living, like, many years before, and it'd be hard to forget as well. Like, who would forget that you had Aemon the fucking Dragon Knight's gauntlet? It's got to be like a forgettable prince, like one of many. God damn it! A previous Dornish dude. I don't know. How do you forget? How do you forget, like, the prince? You know, it's my grandfather used to forget the birthdays of his daughters, but he had 4 daughters. You know, like, you know, it's like we had princes all over the place at the fucking Citadel, so I've forgotten which one it was. You know, he and Aemon were BFFs. They should be BFFs, right? They would have both been there a long time, but, well, when does Aemon go to the wall? Aemon goes to the wall around the same time as the Council of 244 total council of 244. What is it? That's the what is it? Great Council. Great councils. I can get the years here. Great Council of 233. I said 244. 233. So Aemon is already on the wall in 233. So, I mean, they might have been BFFs, but like, they were both super young and then he's gone for fucking ever. Right? Great Council 233. Oh. Fuck. I think I figured it out. Fucking A. Yes. Why would the Maesters be involved? They would be involved because it's a fucking great council. Of course the fucking Maesters, of course the Archmaesters of the Citadel are gonna show up to the Great Council of 233. Right? And who's at the Great Council of 233? A whole bunch of motherfucking princes who have a claim for the throne. Right? So it's one of these motherfuckers. And so like Walgrave is as a young man goes to the Great Council of 233, and you've got all these motherfucking princes who are there, and he somehow ends up with one of their gauntlets, but he forgets which one because there were so many princes there. Yeah. Okay. So it could be Aenys Blackfires, or it could be I mean, it could be eggs, but Egg wins, and you'd think he'd be like, "Oh, I've got Egg." It could be Prince Arian. No, Prince Arian had died. Daron the Drunkard. Let me see here. Who shows up to this fucking vote? I mean, it's probably... I think it's probably Aenys Blackfires. He shows up, he gets beheaded, or he gets, and he drops his fucking gauntlet, and he takes it. Yeah. That's my thing, man. Unless there's some other claimant at 233 that I'm missing here, because it's the only one that could, right? Because Daron the Drunkard dies of the pox, and his only issue is Princess Vela. She's not gonna have a gauntlet. Maekar's next son, Prince Arian, died in 232. Right? Arian's only issue is Prince Meg. It could be Prince Meg. Well, he was a baby, so he's not going to have a gauntlet. Princess Aemon. Aemon took his Maester's vow, and he went there pretty young, so he's not going to have a gauntlet. Maekar's youngest son is Egg, who'd serve as squire. And then Princess Vela is dismissed. And then the only other person that shows up is Aenys Blackfire. Who was executed. I'm going with Annie's Blackfire. It's gotta be. And it happened so long ago that he's like now forgetting. But I mean, it's yeah. Blackfires are sexy, but boring choice. Um, Doran Martell's Gauntlet. A friend of mine suddenly died 2 years ago. I started following because of how much he loved your channel. He loved talking about your theories often. Every time I see your channel, I think of him. Thanks. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting the people that kind of linger um, in your head a lot. Um, the I had this just on a random similar story, but I had this friend years ago in my youth, or in my early 20s, I taught English in Taiwan, and then I moved to Japan and I taught English in Japan for a little bit. And in Taiwan, I met this guy Steve DeBlick, and he was he was a great guy. He was I'd never met a guy who was better at learning languages. He was so bright, and he also laughed at everything I fucking said, which made me love him. Um, but yeah, he it was really weird because he had moved to Japan at the same time, and so I was friends with him in both Taiwan and Japan. And then I lost touch with him um, after Japan, and one of those days where you're just like, whatever happened to this friend? And I like Google him, and then I find out that he had gotten into a motorcycle accident, and then after the motorcycle accident, he got really depressed and he ended up killing himself. And it was just like this day, but I also felt like late to it because it had happened like 2 years previously, But I often think about like things he said and like opinions he had, because he had some very very strong opinions. He had some very strong opinions, um, those opinions now resonate in my head about various things. This lost friend of mine, you know. Uh, I still remember this very vivid conversation I had with him about um, why he opposed the death penalty, and he had like this long like story, and I almost remember it word for word. And he also like had lived in Nepal for a while, and then decided to travel to Tibet, and the Chinese had treated him so horribly, and had kept him in his hotel for a week because they heard him speaking some Tibetan to somebody. He was actually turned in by a Tibetan, um, but and his whole story about like going to Tibet like is like burned in my mind of everything. But we have those ghosts, we have those ghosts. But I hope I've been interesting since. Um, when do you think the US will get the debt ceiling raised? What sort of factors usually impede the process of raising it? And um, and is a shutdown likely? Um, so this is the weird thing about like shutdowns. Shutdowns during the Trump administration, shutdowns happened a couple times, and there was a really long one that went on for 40 days. Um, and keep in mind, I think the Republicans were in charge, which was really crazy. So generally speaking, the Republicans caused the shutdowns, um, and they're unpopular. Like it's really just it's a party doing self harm. Like, why would you do this? Everybody gets their back pay. Everything eventually gets worked out, but they they somehow decide to go through the song and dance over and over again. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I know that it's coming again in March, and who knows what'll happen. It's hard to know. Like, it's hard to analyze. Like, um, how insane everybody has been these days. Um, but what impedes the process? Usually people are looking for large, usually like everybody has a wish in order to get a bill passed, right? Everybody kind of says, okay, I will vote if you pay for my pet project in my pet state, in my state. So hypothetically, let's say you need Jack and Jill to agree. Well, Jack lives in California and Jill lives in Texas, and Jack would like federal funds to go to a dam, and Jill would like federal funds to go to a bridge. And they add this money in, and they both agree to it, right? But then there's some guy in Wisconsin, I'm just picking random, who says, "Oh crap, this bill has gotten too big. We're spending too much money. I don't want to vote for this bill because Jack and Jill asked for too much money. I want everybody to cut it." And I'm not going to vote for this. And everyone's like, come on, motherfucker. Like, we went through a lot of negotiation to get Jack and Jill on board. It's just a fucking dam and it's just a fucking bridge. Like, I understand it's expensive, but come on. And the guy in Wisconsin's like, no, 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 no. And then they get a shutdown. And it goes on and 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 on for days and days and days. And then finally, after like many days, usually the guy from Wisconsin's like, fine, fuck it. And it's just, and all the money gets spent anyway. Like you never get the fiscal cuts. Like you never get the responsibility that people claim. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. Everybody ends up just spending. So, but the debt ceiling is a bit different in that, it used to not be a thing, but it's this other huge threat. It's this nuclear option, because if you don't raise the debt ceiling, then it gets to the point where you have to do things like default on bonds, which then throws the entire world economy like into chaos, because the United States has never in its history defaulted on a government bond. And so US government bonds are considered the most reliable thing in the world. Okay. So if you take that away, and maybe some crypto people want that to happen, maybe they want the bonds to be taken away, but you don't want to default. You don't want US to default. US has never defaulted. Other countries default. The US has never defaulted. And that's a huge, huge thing financially for the selling of treasury bills. Keep in mind, treasury bills is how we finance our debt. It's how we do everything, is by issuing treasury bills. And if the treasury bills can't be trusted anymore because they're defaulted on, that's chaos. That's chaos. So I don't know. It's usually just some random people. The things that impede the process is a bunch of random people saying that we're spending too much money, and it never it never works in cutting costs. It never is effective, but they do it anyway. And sometimes they're trying to get their own projects too. They're like, oh, Jack and Jill got money. I'm not going to vote for it unless you vote for this too. And everybody's like, no, dude, we're not doing that. And then they cause an issue. So it's I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think the next one's in March, and the debt ceiling probably sometime in the summer. But it's we'll see how crazy everything is. I don't know. I mean, me personally, like, shutdowns are great for me. By the way, shutdowns are fantastic for me. But because who doesn't want to get paid for not working? But for people, the people they hurt are federal employees who live paycheck to paycheck, because their paycheck is going to be delayed until the end of the shutdown. But Gold the Man has a genetic engineered dwarf, long night, melded consciousness, celestial objects that isn't, and animals that blow fire out of their butts. What is Gold the Man? Science fiction novel. Now, keep in mind, like, um, going like at this time, 1971. There's not that many science fiction authors. I'm sure George R. R. Martin read this at some point because he was consuming everything. Gold is a man created by genetic engineering. The object is to produce a person, highly intelligent, superhuman reflexes and muscular coordination. Now, dude, it is, keep in mind, this was just like the entire like sci-fi realm, and this, it was all about the genetic engineering. Gold lives in America, world governed by the United Nations. Humanity has been under attack by extraterrestrial race known as the exterminators. Culture of giants discovered as not sterile after all. Oh. Guy thinks he's sterile, but in fact he's just hasn't gone through puberty yet. Interesting. I mean, obviously George takes ideas from other people. He takes ideas from himself, things like that. But animals that blow fire out of their butts. All right. Would you listen to a stream of songs bands have written for A Song of Ice and Fire? Of course I would. I would love to hear songs about that people have written about ice and fire. America has made it through worse. I mean, we had a civil war, obviously, but it's. I mean, it's a bad time, though. I mean, we've been through some really bad times, but you don't know what's going to break you. I mean, you could say like, you could take somebody that's like, they survived cancer at 20, and then they got pneumonia when they were 50 and died. Like getting through something tougher doesn't mean something else isn't going to kill you. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, America's been through some tough times, but these are some really fucking tough times coming up. Like there's and the world in general. Like if we can deal with climate change and all oligarchs and racism and like to the huge degrees and things like this. I don't know. I wish I could have more hope right now. I do. But my only hope is in like other countries. Like I just don't know, like, America is so dumb, and we're so susceptible to misinformation, and we believe anything, and we have such short attention spans, that it also doesn't even matter. Like, let's say this is like horrible and this is just dreadful, but we get through it. Democrats take Congress in 2 years, and then we elect a great leader that next year. The problem is it's going to happen again. Like 4 years are going to go by, and everyone's going to be like, maybe this fascism thing is for me again. It'll be like fucking 4 more years, and then it'll be at this point again. Like, who would have ever fucking thought that that a guy who tried to overthrow the U.S. government and who got impeached twice, who was disgraced, that after 4 years, and who like drove the country into such horrible shit and like botched COVID like handling so much and like sent people to the Capitol. Who would have thought that like 4 years later he'd be elected doing even worse shit? And everyone was like, yeah, no, this is a good idea. Like who would have thought? Even if we survive it, it's like, we're just going to fucking forget again and just believe all this misinformation. Hey, how goes it?
Real quick, this person here, Jane Theory,
Yeah.
I fucking love what she said. If you like right above, right there,
Yeah.
those countries, no. Yeah, right there. Those countries right between Ava and John Sweeney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those she says here those countries can look at their own corrupt histories as well. America does not have a monopoly on foolishness. That is so fucking true. This is why I'm so sick
Sure.
of like listening to people like Hassan, where every argument is America bad, America bad, America bad. America does dumb stuff,
Oh yeah.
and we're going to deserve everything we get from electing Donald Trump.
It's bad. It's and it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be really bad. It's been fucking
Actually,
6 days, man.
not
It's been
really.
fucking
And I want
six
to say
days.
this. This is important to say because I know for a fact that people love giving you shit because they'll go in your comment section and say
Mm,
Trump 2020,
yeah.
or 2024, Trump 2028. What those people don't understand about you and Trump is that you're not really going to be affected. Those people, those
Yeah. I
Trump
mean,
supporters,
it's a
because
funny
I
thing
don't worry,
because
I won't say anything.
yeah.
I won't say anything like too personal. But those people are going to be paying for your tax cuts. You're not wealthy by any
Right.
means,
I
but
mean,
you
that's the
made
thing
some
is
very
like
good plans.
I'm privileged enough that all of the things that can hurt people, they hurt other people, and I've got enough money to shield myself, right? Um, and many of us are lucky enough to be like that. But like I happen to be a straight white male who's cis who has enough money to do whatever. If something's illegal where I am, I can go someplace where it is legal. It doesn't fucking matter. I can I can shield myself from everything. Um, some stuff is annoying. Like, I mean, it won't affect like had I been working and his ending telework, that would have just been like, oh my god, like that makes my life really a pain. But I'm not working right now, so it's like that's going to affect all my coworkers who are still working. Like, oh my god, what a horrible thing to do to end teleworking. Like, why? Oh, I know why. You just want people to quit. Like you're just being a fucking dick. Like, it's the same thing Elon did with Twitter. Like immediately ending telework. Like, oh my God. Like, why? But I'm
That's
not
sad
working right now.
though.
So yeah.
You highlighted something very interesting. It's very sad that it's become a race to be wealthy enough so America's failings don't affect you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to the idiot who goes, of course, Carmine hates Hassan. Well, yeah, I mean, he had on one of the Houthi terrorists and thought it was really cool to equate him to an anime character. I mean, I think that's pretty dumb. And to the people saying that kid was not a Houthi terrorist, no, I guess not. He just happens to be everywhere the Houthi pirates are conducting their terrorism. He just happens to be there. Like Peter Parker. Like Peter Parker's not Spider-Man. He just
Yeah. I
happens
mean,
to
look,
be where
I'm
Spider-Man
not one to, I'm not, so the way the right wing works is by dividing the left, and I'm not one to divide the left. I don't I don't criticize other people on the left. Like that's just not my thing.
That's fair.
Until they get to the point where they're no longer voting for a Democrat. Like once they're
Ah,
telling people to stop voting for Democrats, then you're my enemy. But like I'm not going to spend time like criticizing other left wingers as long as they're still pushing people to vote for Democrats. Like that's it.
can we criticize lefty or quote unquote lefties who championed and cheered Kamala losing because there was some kind of ceasefire in Palestine? Can we cheer those?
Well,
Can
they're
we hate
they're
on those
they're
guys?
just fucking stupid. I mean, like
Mm,
the ceasefire in Palestine means nothing. I mean, it means nothing. Like what do you like? What you think that
really?
like this is going to be a lasting peace in any sense? Like you think that all of a sudden like Gazans are like going to be living great lives like because of a ceasefire?
What
Like
morally bankrupt ice and fire YouTuber would do that? It's almost as though they don't know what they're talking about. I
well,
can't put
he
my
doesn't
finger on who would do
he's
it.
really fucking stupid. I mean, like I say, I had an argument with where I'm like one candidate believes in two-state solution, the other candidate doesn't, and he's like he didn't believe that was a thing, and here lo and behold, Trump is talking about expelling the Gazans from Gaza. Like, of course, Like, of course Kamala was better for Palestine. Like, of course she was. Like, you fucking idiot. He didn't know anything about Abrams Accord and how Trump essentially caused the Gaza war. Jared Kushner caused the Gaza war because of the Abrams Accord.
Hey,
But
did you see what he did? Did you
whatever.
see like how he removed the sanctions off the settlers in Gaza?
Remove sanctions off of settlers in Gaza? Oh
Yeah,
God.
so
Oh.
Biden put sanctions on Israelis who were trying to settle in Gaza, but Trump lifted those sanctions, and he also
Well,
chose
in
Elise
West Bank,
Stefanik.
there are no settlers in Gaza, but yeah, in West Bank.
Right, West Bank, sorry.
Yeah.
But he also chose Elise Stefanik for UN ambassador, who I believe once said that Israel had a
Mhm.
biblical right to all the occupied territories in that
Yeah,
region.
yeah. Oh, no, I mean
So,
he's straight up asking for the Jordan, who already had Jordan, a country that already has millions of refugees already, to take on all the rest of the Palestinians, which is like the right wing position. The right wing Israeli position is let's push them all into Jordan and Egypt, and let's ethnically cleanse. And Trump has taken on that position. And like I said, I said before, I mean, these positions haven't been a fucking secret. Like, you can go on and look at, like what Secretary Blinken like would say and Biden's position, and you can look at like Trump's narrative and what Trump said and what he did, and there is a stark difference between them. So like, anyone that was saying that like the Biden administration like was the same as the Trump administration on Israel Palestine is just an idiot. Like, you just didn't fucking pay attention and you didn't look. Like, you're just stupid and lazy. Like, that's it. And you're on Twitter and posting stuff to for clout. Like, why is anyone still on Twitter? Like, why are you still on Twitter, Carmine? Get the fuck off it. Like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?
I need to make my Elon dollars. What do you mean? Hey, you should be having this conversation with Trey. I'm gonna get him in here. You can have
Oh,
this
you're right. No, I
conversation.
will. I will bash Trey. Like, what are you fucking doing, Trey? What are you fucking doing? Still being on. Still being on. Like, come on, come on. Get up. Get the fuck off Twitter. Like, how many more? He's like, what is Trey gonna be like? I know what Trey's gonna say. He'll be like, yeah, I know. It's just. I'd be like, and then I'll be like, Trey, how many more C Kyles does Elon Musk need to do for you to get off? Like, is it, if he does like, what's your number? Is it 17 C Kyles? Is like, right now it's two, like two have been done. Is 17 the number? Or is it like somewhere in between? Does Elon need to get to 5 C Kyles before you're off Twitter? Like, how many C Kyles does it have to be?
How many Seagulls does it take? Oh man, that's a good question.
Right? Because,
One should be
honestly
enough, but
speaking, like, how many, like, for you, like, you admit that if Elon did what, like 50 C Kyles, you'd probably be off, right?
at least 50 would probably be.
Right,
At
but
least
yeah, but he's
50.
done two, so somewhere between 2 and 50 is your magic number of C
That
Kyles
was my
to
magic
convince you to
number,
get off
probably.
Twitter.
By the way, let me make this very clear. Hassan is not a leftist. Hassan is just LARPing as a leftist. So I know Preston won't attack other leftists, but again, this one kid is trying to bad faith me on this. I just don't think having terrorists on your platform and equating them to anime characters is probably the best move. That's just my opinion, personally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about like who this Houthi guy was, and such. So, also, like, don't get me involved. Like, don't get involved in like Yemeni politics. Like all the parties in Yemen suck. So like when if one guy's like freedom fighting in Yemen against the powers that be, I'd be like, can I blame him? like they it's really poor Yemen. Poor Yemen. Yemen is a country where like people spend like a third of their wealth like on something called cut. Chewing cut.
Isn't Yemen
So
also the country where other countries dump their garbage there?
probably, I mean, Yemen is also really beautiful, and like
Mm-hmm.
they have like a whole bunch of sea turtles settle there. They have like they could have an incredible economy and incredible, situation, but it's very tribal and it's very religious, and it's also got a major drug addiction problem. And so you throw all these things together, like the tribal warfare, the religious extremism, and the drug addiction, and it's just really fucking tough. Yeah. Everybody carries around these giant daggers. They've got these belts called, jalabar, jalabia. These huge knives. I have one. Anyway, thanks for reminding me how sad I am that we never got a conclusion to the Pirates of Dark Water. Did you want Red Dwarf? So what Mr. Pink is talking about, there was this cartoon called Pirates of Dark Water, which was really imaginative, but it was about this whole world where this oily black tar was taking over the world slowly, and they had to keep running to new locations because the black tar was coming. I think, did they steal the idea for Moana? Isn't that plot of Moana too? Now that I think about it, it just occurred to me that Taka, is that the thing? Yeah, and then she like finds the. Yeah, I think they steal the plot for Moana. Anyway, but I mean, there are other cool things about Moana, but like whatever. Um, basing it off of like Polynesian history and stuff like that. But um, they have to like uh, collect all of the treasures, the 13 treasures, and get them together, and then they can stop the water. And they only ended up finding 8 of them before the thing was canceled and never continued on. However, I found out recently, because I think Secret Galaxy did a review of Pirates of Dark Water, that it turns out in the end, after interviews with the creator, he said that in truth the treasures were all actually magic feathers, and that the true treasures were virtues like integrity, honesty, things like that, compassion, and those were the things that would like save the world. And I was like, oh wow, that's actually really. I mean, I understand that it's cheesy and that, oh, it's the friends that we made along the way, but it's actually like it's actually quite clever if you're talking about the problems of the world like consuming us. Like we can't just collect treasures. We can't just collect money. What needs to happen is society gaining virtues to fight it all, right? Like if you're thinking about environmentalism, like collecting money isn't going to stop global warming. Like you need to change humanity's mindset. And that really the story's ending was about discovering that the 13 treasures were human virtues that would cause the reversal of the death of the world. Which was I kind of like it, especially considering it's like a kid's cartoon that so much thought was put into it. Did you run Red Dwarf? Red Dwarf, where they keep like bringing it back after like many years, and the actors are so old. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. They will never really end Red Dwarf. But I love Red Dwarf so much. Like some of those early Red Dwarf episodes are incredible. Coffee Wars with Columbia. Oh yeah, but somehow like causing problems with Denmark. Like, okay. Skagos being cannibals, they just ate Rickon. That would be a funny thing. You just show up and like Rickon's been eaten. But I think that didn't they have ships get blown off course to Skagos? I think Stannis had ships blown off course to Skagos. Maybe did did Cotter Pike have it too? Yeah, it had Cotter Pike had Aledo and Old Mother's son. Yeah, they also got sent to Skagos. So we got a whole bunch of characters that can show up. Stannis's men from the Wall. Um, fuck Aledo and Old Mother's son. That means we could have Pip and Gren. Anybody that we want to like show up. Uh, um, who knows? Alardine? But I'd like the cannibal thing to be something that was um, that's just a little bit of a misunderstanding. Like maybe it's people drinking blood. Maybe it's some people want it to be the dragon. So but I want it to be a mistake that people think that they're cannibals when they're actually something else. Maybe even something worse. Like, oh, you thought they were just eating human flesh? No, they're doing a lot worse. But yeah, and the unicorns, yes, of course. When the ships, this is if we have the undead on the ships. Wouldn't they be racist because they're white powered? Thank you, Count Balerion of House Tatters. Um, Maybe it's cannabis. Yes, maybe. Maggie's prophecy may be self-fulfilling, but how do you explain her knowing Cersei would marry the king and not the prince? Events that were beyond Cersei's control. Um, well, I mean, if Maggie the Frog were related to the Spicers, which, so she does have ideas about what's the inner workings of the houses, the great houses. She can hear about this. She's not just some random woman, right? She turns out she's involved with the Highborn. Okay, so I mean, knowing that a rebellion is going to come, is not, and knowing that like she will marry a king rather than a prince is, it's a good guess, but it's also not like an astoundingly like fantastic one. Like think about, like, she also doesn't name who that king would be. Like, you know, maybe Maggie the Frog completely thinks that there's going to be a rebellion, and Lord Tywin is going to declare independence, and she is going to marry some other king, the king of the Riverlands, and that's what she had in her mind. Or maybe she thinks that Rhaegar is going to usurp his father, and she will marry Rhaegar because he'll be king then, because she thinks that that's going on, that people are actually rising up for Rhaegar. So I mean, like, knowing, like, predicting that the Mad King's situation is unsustainable and that revolution is coming in one way or the other, and that Cersei, being Tywin's daughter, is going to marry the winner of this revolution, I don't think is that. I mean, it may be a lucky guess, but it's not that lucky of a guess. Like, you're talking the most beautiful girl in the world, who is also the daughter of one of the most powerful men, the richest man, one of the most powerful men in the kingdom, who has ambitions, who has always had ambitions, who's telling everyone that he has ambitions to have his daughter marry Prince Rhaegar. And, so much so that Cersei, like, tells him this, that, oh, will I marry the prince? And she says, oh, you're not going to marry the prince, you'll marry the king. I mean, her predicting that Aerys is going to get overthrown is not It's not that much. It's not that lucky, right? Like she could have been thinking that she was going to marry King Rhaegar or any other king, but the only guess that she's having is that Aerys is going to be overthrown before Cersei comes of age. Because how old is Cersei in they're in the Maggie the Frog? Like she's like 10. She's around the same age as Arya, I think. Maggie, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't say. But predicting that Aerys is going to get overthrown before Cersei comes of age and can marry is, I don't know. It's not I don't think it's that crazy of a guess, Tywin had him hand him his gauntlet with his hand still in it. Here we go. In the Battle of the Green Fork, Tyrion is offered a gauntlet as a symbol of yielding and disgusted to find a hand is still in it. Yes. Okay. Let me find the very George R. R. Martin. Lewin Martell, a prince. Lewin Martell would be a prince. Beho makes me really, because one of those things, because I was talking about the Kingsguard and the chased gold is often talked about with the Kingsguard. But you're right that Lewin Martell as a Kingsguard would have been a prince. And so he would have been a king's. Yeah, maybe. He died in. That's an interesting idea. I mean, I can't think of any reason why Lewin Martell would be in Old Town and why Walgrave would know him, but it does open up the idea of like if it's a gauntlet that he has one of Lewin Martell's gauntlets. One-armed prince. Can Ibonese become red priests? I imagine anybody can become a red priest. Were the Highborn descended from genetically engineered ancestors? Jaime and Cersei, otherworldly beauty, Clegane's strength, etc., like House of the Worm. That's my guess. My guess is that like in House of the Worm or Dying of the Light, you've got these underground holdfasts where there's a lot of inbreeding, and then that kind of creates, like, you end up having higher telepathic powers based on that, and that these, once they emerged, they still revered the animals that they had telepathic connections with, like in Dying of the Light, and they purposely married amongst themselves in an inbreeding sense to maintain that connection, and then it was kind of forgotten, but that's the reason they were doing it for so long, that kind of stuff. That it gets even more conspiratorial, that they established feudalism, a system where you kind of have to marry cousins because of so that they would keep their their telepathic bonds to animals. In feudalism, you kind of have to keep marrying your cousins and stuff, because if you marry out, your lands keep getting divided and divided and divided, and so until you have nothing, right? So you kind of have to marry cousins in order to keep the wealth in the family. Cousin marriage, like generally speaking, cousin marriage is about keeping wealth within families. That's why people do it, you know. They actually do something even more specific called cross cousin marriages, where, you know, the cousins would marry, and then their cousins would marry, and then their cousins would marry, and it creates this like daisy chain to create wealth in the family. But yeah, I think I know this sounds really silly. Like people are like, oh, but George definitely was thinking about these things. He wrote it in Dying of the Light and stuff, in the House of the Worm. So I do kind of, you know, I think when he was transplanting these ideas, you know, that kind of stuff gets transplanted over. Hi, Preston. The latest Cersei chapter got me thinking of Rhaenys Targaryen's cool black cat Balerion. That's likely the cat terrorizing Tommen and his cat's general thoughts and use in the fanfic. Definitely thought about Balerion. I just he's even mentioned in the epilogue of A Dance with Dragons. I just couldn't find a way to shove him in. Like I was shoving in a lot of different Easter eggs and stuff, and I just couldn't come up with a way to shove in Balerion. But I'm definitely thinking about, or the Black Tomcat. You know, maybe he's Balerion. He's probably Balerion. I mean, come on. Realistically, he's a little too old to be that cat, but it's Ice and Fire, and you can extend things out a little bit, you know. So, yeah, no, I it's something I'm definitely thinking about. The cat is coming back. Don't worry, the cat's coming back. It's just in the fanfic I wasn't able to find room for him, but he'll be showing up. He'll be showing up. Don't worry. Maybe Jaqen already stole the first gauntlet, but grabbed the wrong one by mistake, and it's too embarrassing to go back. Now I'm thinking that like there's this second gauntlet with even more treasures like inside the gauntlet that we're not even considering, that the other gauntlet is there. But it's an interesting idea that the gauntlet is that's the other thing, is like maybe Aenys Blackfire, like he like submitted and submitted and showed this gauntlet, and then he was killed anyway, executed anyway. That'd be some crazy stuff, that it's his submission gauntlet, and that somehow he somehow Walgrave got a hold of it. But yeah, and so I'm gonna eventually do a video on the long prologue. But it's interesting that Jaqen was straight up going for the glass candle, and he was trying to get to the glass candle, and so and because it's funny that in the story that we got, am I offline? I don't know if I've lost. I've been like slowing up, so I've got to make sure that hopefully I'm still online. There we go. I know I've been slowing up, but in the story that we got, Jaqen at story's beginning is trying to get a key, but at the end he's in front of a glass candle. He's trying to get to the glass candle by pretending to be Pate. And in the original, he's just asking Pate for the glass candle. So somehow he ended up in the same place, but like, what's the key for? What did he want besides the glass candle? What did he want? That tome, Fire and Blood, or whatever, Blood and Fire, or was it something else? You know, because originally it's in the long prologue, he just wants the glass candle to begin with, and he wants Pate to steal the glass candle. And so Pate, like, straps it to his leg and gets all cut up and stuff. Yeah, holy shit. One of them gave up their claim. I imagine like they were like Aenys Blackfire like showed up and they were like, we're gonna execute and kill you. And he's like, no, 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 no. I'm not king. Here, I give up my claim, I give up my gauntlet, and they still kill him. Yeah. Mm. That's good because it also like makes Bloodraven look even worse. Like he yielded and he still just killed the guy. Oh yeah. I think we figured. Oh man. I mean, I don't know if we actually figured out what George was thinking. George probably was just writing some stuff, but I think this is. I think this is a really good story. I think this is really good that it's Aenys Blackfire like yielding, giving his gauntlet over, saying, "Don't execute me. I give up my claim," and he still gets executed. That's just. I mean, that's just heartbreaking. Um. Mm, mm, mm. Huh. Would the U.S. national debt be like in relative terms to the crown on Westeros? Huh. I mean, what's U.S. debt like? 120% of GDP. Um, I think in history, I mean, it's based on Henry VIII's debts. Um, in which and I think Henry VIII's debts might have been higher. Like he started doing some crazy stuff to try to reduce the debt, like stealing church land and stuff like that. Um, I'm trying to remember, but it's hard to say like how much were they pulling in. Mm, I don't know. I mean, the big thing is they were like losing a lot of money in war. Um, here, U.S. debt during World War II. That's a more interesting kind of question because in reality, like the country's going to massive debt not from random expenditures, but from huge expensive wars. And so we're talking like debt to GDP. Yeah, debt to GDP today is about on the same level as World War II. You know, so like during World War II, we had it was about 120%. Um, and today it's about maybe 130. But it's relative. I mean, you know, I guess we have a pretty, you know, it's a lot of debt. But we did have COVID, you know. I think if you go pre-COVID, it was lower, you know. So I saw a video last night positing that the reason George can't finish A Song of Ice and Fire is that so much of A Song of Ice and Fire is about subverting Tolkien tropes, and he can't think of a way of ending it satisfactory without. I don't agree with that. I mean, so guys, this week I will have for you a big video that I've been working on for a while. It's a big one. It's about 30 minutes long. People on my Patreon have already seen it. About what went wrong with A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons and why it took so long. But I don't think it has much to do with subverting tropes. I think it's I don't know. Most of his stuff is more logistics. Like, how does this work? How can I tell this tale when somebody's not there? Or I haven't come up with what he's going to do, so I'm just going to keep writing and writing and writing, and I'll figure something out. And so you end up having these huge narrative, or adding more points of view and things like that. But anyway, I don't want to give too much away on my video, but you'll get it this week. Be excited.
If someone is impatient and they want it right now, where can they find that?
They can find it on my Patreon. Yeah.
Which is patreon.com/Preston Jacobs. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Time Traveling Bran can go back to 2010 and tell George R. R. Martin either got seasons 7 to 8 hated by 2025, or No Winds of Winter. Your preference. Bigger impact on George. I think the latter would have a much bigger impact. Because, I think he himself had been watching the show, and he himself must have known that there was a quality drop as time went on. And he would fully expect, he's not a modest man. Like, he fully thinks his story is the thing that people like. And as they diverted from his story, he's going to be like, well, of course they're not going to like it, as they made more, took more and more liberties. And so I don't think he'd be that surprised that season 7 to 8 were going to be hated. I think he would be very surprised that he would never finish the story. In 2010, he had just gotten. What's funny is in 2010, like they were just beginning like production, on Game of Thrones. Like, he's getting casting rumor, all that kind of stuff is going on. For him to hear that they were going to do 7 to 8 seasons, he would be probably overjoyed, because at that point in his life, he doesn't even know if he's going to get one season. And so, he'd probably be thrown off by the fact, oh my God, I'm going to get 7 to 8 HBO seasons. Like, my whole life is going to change. Like, he didn't know at that point that his whole life was going to change, that he's going to have hundreds of millions of dollars. But I do think that he's not going to finish by 2025 would be a very shocking kind of thing. Like 15 years, you haven't gotten something done, that you mean to do. Like, that'd be really shocking, Like, Carmine, do you have any like vacation bucket lists that you'd like to go to? Like, do you ever want to go to?
Yeah, of course.
Do you ever want to go to, say, Mount Rushmore or the Grand Canyon? Have you been to the Grand Canyon?
No.
Imagine like somebody came to you and said, it's been in 15 years, you will have not gone to the Grand Canyon. Like, wouldn't you be like, whoa, that's weird, right?
I really want to know who the person, the previous person you clicked on, Praetorian. I want to know who that YouTuber was, because, oh my God, that is not what's happening at all. Based off what Elio said, and I watched the video, you linked it to me before you put it on Patreon. Both you nailed it on the head. What's the phrase? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. You hit the nail on the head. And this is something Elio said back in October. What's keeping George up at night with these books is that he's trying to put himself in a position where there's only one left after Winds, which is fucking impossible. And I'm not going to spoil your video, but It's not something. It's a problem he's had before, and George is delusional. In fact, he was delusional in the middle of Game of Thrones while the show was airing. I think it was on season
Mhm.
3, season 4.
Oh
He was
yeah.
saying that he wants to finish so they have more material, and then later on, he was also. I think at the season 8 premiere, he said they could have gone on for 12 more seasons.
Oh yeah.
George is out of his fucking mind.
There's
He's
a lot
delusional.
of things like a lot of moments in time where he's like, I'm gonna finish the book in 6 months, and you're like, are you? 10 years later, he
Does
hasn't
anybody
finished it in
remember
6 months. You know.
back in 2019 when he said, like, by the time I'm next time I
Hmm.
come to this
You
convention,
could kidnap me and.
yeah,
Hmm.
you can
Yep.
kidnap me and keep me in that cabin until I'm done. Here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um. Hi, Preston. Are you worried about the executive orders about federal employees? Yeah. So, well, I mean, there's certain things that I'm worried about, and certain things that, like, personally, and there's things that I worry about in general. Um, so for example, in a global sense, and I'm not going to be doing any work for another couple of years. Okay, so I'm not going to be, until we leave, until we come back from Dominican Republic. I'm not going to be doing any work. So a lot of these things aren't going to affect me in the short term. But I will say that um, COVID had a really nice effect. I mean, obviously, those millions of people dying is a horrible thing, but like the fact that COVID caused many businesses and the US government to realize that teleworking was a real option, that people are more productive teleworking than they are going into the office every day. The fact that we learned that as a society is incredible. The fact that like that can keep cars off the road, it can give people more time to spend with their families and stuff. To get rid of commuting was an incredible thing. And that was an incredible discovery that we could be more productive as a society without having to commute an hour each way. Okay. And so that was because I very briefly before COVID like did the whole like going into work, like trying to drop my kid off at daycare, rushing into work, trying to rush back to daycare to pick him up, and how horrible that was. Traffic comes and then you're late and you pay late fees for picking up your kid late, all the stuff, and you spend less time with them. And during COVID, I got to spend so much more time with my children and I didn't have to commute so much. And that teleworking policy continued on, and it made everybody's life better. And then for them to just be coming with an executive order and be like, it's done, boom. Well, it doesn't affect me right now, but in 2 years, I hope my office will be back up to the point where they reintroduce it. Like it was so great, and it was taken away just as a method to try to get people to quit. You know, like there's a woman in my office who took her job with our office because she lives on the north side of Baltimore, and she doesn't mind commuting in like once a week. But to commute in every day, especially because everybody else is now going to be on the road. Now there's going to be traffic again. Like traffic in DC was horrible. And then COVID happened and it got a little better. And you're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. You know? So that kind of thing, like the work-life balance and how it was just destroyed out of spite, destroyed and to try to get people to quit. Like we're going to try to make federal employees suffer. Um, it's really horrible. I mean, keep in mind that like in the military and in the State Department, there are also couples where, there's not a job for the other person, so they had programs, they're government teleworking programs that allow people to telework from remote locations because their spouse has been moved somewhere. Like say you're in the military and you are put on a base in Kansas, and your spouse, they have a job in Houston, Texas. Well, Now you can keep that job and you can work on that base and telework. Well, now that's ended. Just boom, ended. Now that spouse can't do that. In the State Department, there's foreign service officers who are married. It's very difficult for married foreign service officers to serve together. And so, but now, like, if one person can get, well, it's because there's usually not enough positions for everybody when they start moving around, right? So if one person gets posted in Mexico, and the other person can telework now from Mexico and either have a DC job or even maybe a Guatemala job, but they're teleworking. But now that's just like taken away for no fucking reason. Like, it's just like brutal. For someone that doesn't know anything and who's just like, well, people need to get into the office. Like, no, they're just trying to make, because all the studies showed that it was more efficient, that people were happier and they were actually producing more work. So that stuff like makes me really fucking upset and scared in the future. I mean, I don't know if it'll be fixed in 2 years because it took COVID for them to get into a teleworking position. How quickly are they going to get out of that teleworking position? Trump's not going to be out of office in 2 years, but even in 4 years, like, bureaucrats are slow. Like, oh, we've been back in the office for 4 years. I don't know if we want to put everybody back into teleworking immediately. Now they've forgotten how good it was 4 years ago and stuff like that. It's just like really horrible stuff like that. Now, then there's an executive order freezing all foreign assistance, which is just, my job is auditing foreign assistance. So now what do we audit? Like, what do we fucking audit? When you go in, you're like, if you were to audit something and they're like, well, the foreign assistance is frozen, we're not doing anything. So wait, now you have nothing to audit. Okay. I mean, I still receive my salary, but it's like, I have no job. Like, I'm currently not working, but my office, like, they have no job to do because you can't audit foreign assistance is not being done, So yeah, all these things like worry me, they're, because even when they're illegal or improper or whatever, it takes so much time to undo them. It's just annoying. But yeah, it's horrible, and the people involved in it are just horrible people. They're just horrible people. Like, this was clearly done just to hurt people, like just to hurt federal employees. So I mean, I'm not working, but everybody else is just hi Preston. I read The Word for the World is Forest by Le Guin, and I think it inspired Children of the Forest, tiny green forest aliens with mental powers that fight off their human invaders. Also, love an Armageddon rag, lol. Armageddon rag is not as bad as George claims it is, and it's just very weird in that I have my music that I really love. And when I find somebody else that's really into my music, like, we can have a long conversation, if we want to talk about, how great the Band of Vale is, or you want to talk about, propaganda, or, these like really obscure, the Bouncing Souls, like, you want to talk about these bands, I can talk to you about them forever. But I recognize that they're really niche, like, not that many people are going to know about them. George R. R. Martin wrote this book as if the whole fucking world listened to the exact same music as he did. And they just didn't. And so of course they didn't buy his book, this book about, the very specific folk music from the 60s, but relating it to punk rock. It was really weird. I think it is a good book. I think it's fine, but it's very funny that he thought that it would have some sort of mass appeal. Because it's so specific. But yeah, I don't know about the tiny green aliens. I mean, I think the story of like forest elves and forest pixies and stuff like that is pretty common. And he had written "And Seven Times Never Kill Man," which is pretty much that story too, back in the 70s, um, with like primitive forest creatures with telepathic powers, like fighting off like invaders and stuff. So the North remembers, the USA doesn't. That's right. Um, Democrats are left wing. Demerits. Is that what you're saying? That they're not moral or something? I don't know. I mean, everything's relative, but Democrats believe in climate change. They believe in you know, women's rights. They believe in diversity. Like, there's a lot of things that they believe in. I would rather live in the state of Maryland than in the state of Arkansas. Um, so yeah, of course they are. Like, I don't know what right wing policies, like free trade. Like, is that like the worst you can get them on? Like free trade? Like what like what's right wing about the Democratic Party? Like, people say this all the time, that like, oh, America, like, you know, they're in general, they're like, your left wing party would be our right wing party and stuff like that. And you're like, nah, I mean, not really. Not really. Not really. You like highlight a few specific things, um that, like, few specific policies that, but no, it's there's a clear difference in America between our parties, and one is right wing and fascist, and the other is a I don't know, a party that's like somewhat slowly trying to to establish social programs to like help the world, and you know what I mean, keep in mind that, like, when people have like free trade and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, free trade is it's a right wing policy. It's like, no, I mean, the idea is that the free trade creates more businesses for more workers and creates cheaper products for people. Like, there is a benefit the masses idea going on in there. Um, what if everyone just thinks Ned and Howland Reed were best friends, but Howland secretly hates Ned? Maybe Howland never liked Ned, or they had maybe a falling out over the Tower of Joy. I mean, that's an interesting idea, because Ned clearly said that his great friend was Howland Reed, but it may not be the reverse. I know that Simon and Garfunkel thought they were best friends, and they spent all these years together, and he's like, we were inseparable, we were best friends. And then you ask Paul Simon, and Paul Simon's like, no, I hated Garfunkel. Like, he was inseparable. Like, and then they eventually got over it and are friends again and things like that. But like, there was a one-way aspect of it where Garfunkel thought their relationship was cool, and he was really like caught off guard when Paul Simon started doing all of these, like, saying all this mean stuff and doing, and in the end, I think Paul Simon was wanted all of the limelight. Like, he wanted all of it. He didn't want anything for Garfunkel. He thought Garfunkel didn't deserve anything. So it might be like that situation, that Paul Simon is the Kranigman, and Garfunkel's Ned. Garfunkel secretly has, I mean, Ned Stark secretly has a beautiful, beautiful voice, but Howland Reed, he's a pretty good songwriter, and so the two of them, they're at Harrenhal singing "Bridge Over Troubled Waters." But yeah, it could be something like that, where there's a one-way, there's miscommunication. Don't we save money by remote work? Of course we do. Of course we do. Most of these agencies actually downsize their offices, so they don't even have enough space to bring everybody back. So it's really, I don't know what's going to go on. Oh man, DC became so much nicer too. Like some of the roads we like created more like cafes and stuff because you could take some of the road because there was less traffic. So uh nobody cares about Blue Sky, let's be real. It's growing, man. It's pretty close to 30 million. Blue Sky is like it's like Twitter back in the day. It's
So
like
real quick about that, I was listening to, I was actually watching a Stern Show video from way back in like the late 2000s, and this was like when Howard Stern and the Stern Show got onto Twitter for the first time, and on screen they showed it what it looked like. It looked so different in its first year, vastly different, like a completely different platform.
yeah.
Yeah, give Blue Sky another year or so. It'll get up there. It's getting up there quite quick.
It's
So
getting up there right quick, and honestly, like it's only a matter of time before nation states start banning like Twitter. Because Elon, like he's going nuts with this whole like Nazi thing. Like he is, supporting the far right parties in Germany and saying all sorts of crazy stuff. It's only a matter of time before they're like, well, we just can't even allow that. And they're going to cut. He's going to start losing access country by country. Um, I've already been seeing pictures in Europe of people vandalizing Teslas, um, spray painting swastikas on them and such. Um, yeah. Have you heard that they found another a flaw in the Cybertruck?
again, wow, so many.
Yeah, it's been pulling to the Reich.
Is that a dad joke? Oh my god, he's got a book of them. By the way, have you seen a lot of Cybertrucks when you were in DC?
I saw a couple. There was one that would park at the grocery store across from my kid's daycare. Um, and I saw maybe one other driving down the road. But I mean, like I say, like a couple times. Um,
I've seen a couple
they're
too. They're
ugly.
so lame. They're
They're so ugly.
they
They don't.
are.
They apparently they don't have a brake. Did you know that?
What? What do you mean? No brake?
There's no
How is
brake.
that possible?
Yeah, no. Like when you pull off the accelerator, it automatically brakes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
I
have
don't
to
know if I
like.
trust that.
There's so many dumb things about it. Like no turn indicator. Not like sticks. So like yeah, and also it's not a wheel. It's like a pilot thing, and there's no turn indicator like sticks sitting out. So like when you want to do a turn indicator, you apparently just kind of like wave or no, I'm sorry, you press a button on the wheel.
It
So like
looks like it'd be a really cool
right,
thing.
all of the muscle memory of your entire life of driving a car is like lost. I mean,
Like you have to relearn.
right. Well, I mean, this is already kind of weird. Like, you know how I'm an old man. So when I get into a car and I'm like looking for a place to put the key in, and then I realize like, oh, they don't do that anymore. Now I've got to fucking put my keys down where I'm gonna forget them, and then I gotta like press a button to start the car. That's weird for me. I'm like,
Are you saying you've tried the Cybertruck before?
no, 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 no. I'm just talking about regular cars now. Okay, like
Okay.
when I drive my Prius. Okay, so the Prius doesn't have a keyhole, right? You
Mm.
press a button to start the car. It also doesn't have a shifter to pull you back into drive. You flick a switch, right? That already was weird to me because your muscle memory from years and years and years is key, start, into drive, go. And there's a lot
Hmm.
of things that fuck up when you like don't do that. Like, um, like it's sometimes you don't turn off the car because the routine is off. Sometimes you accidentally leave the car on because you didn't put it back into park and take the key out and all of these sorts of things. But yeah, on the Cybertruck, to put into Drive, I think there's a touch screen where you like put into Drive like using a touch screen, and you use buttons to do the turn indicators, and instead of using stalks, that was the word I was looking for. Turn indicator stalks. The same, you want to like turn on your window shield wipers, you don't like twist the turn indicator, not you've got to press a button or whatever, or find it on a touchpad. There's no brake pedal. It's fucking stupid. It's all fucking stupid. Like, people have lifetimes of muscle memory. Like, why change it? Why would I want a fucking touchpad to put something in Drive? Like, fuck you. Like, fuck you. You know how much I fucking hate having to like click and scroll down to United States on a drop screen, or like scroll down to 1970 when I was born, and just scroll, like when I could have just typed it in. Like, fuck you guys. Like, why do you keep changing stuff that I have muscle memoried in, like, to something less efficient? Well, the reason is it's a lot cheaper to put in a touchscreen than it is to put in a physical shifting gear.
You would think it'd be the other way around, but
they can just, when you have got like you've got some guy in China getting 1 grain of rice for every touchscreen he produces, on an assembly line.
The Tesla Cybertruck thing would be cool in like an amusement park of the future, what the future might look like. But on the road, I just don't trust it.
No, of course
Plus,
not.
you're right.
Who would? They're ugly as sin too. Why would anyone? Fucking Cybertruck. Jesus.
Also, in regards to into Blue Sky, it is you don't use social media often, and you have me on my private social media. You notice that I don't use it that often.
No.
I use Twitter because it's connected to my business. I'm not using it. There's a difference between using a social media thing as you versus as your business. So, it is what it is. But I do need to start using Blue Sky. I keep forgetting it exists because it is so quiet.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is also unusable for me because it's like you go on and you get the main feed and it's just a bunch of horror stuff, and then like Nazi blue check marks are like the first comment on everything. So you just get pissed off, like immediately getting, like, the minute you log in to Twitter, you're just getting assaulted by Nazis. Like, it's a straight up assault the first thing when you go onto Twitter. Like, why would you? And that. That it's an immediate right-wing fascist Nazi assault the minute you go on. So come on. Get the fuck off Twitter. Like, I understand that you want to see Trey's posts. That's the only thing. If you get Trey off of Twitter, then he won't be on there anymore.
Have you not seen the latex prints?
The only thing that brings you happiness from Twitter is Trey's posts.
Hold on. Let me show you this. Hold on. Let me show you this. Whip your phone out or Facebook out. Just look at it. Come on. Just look at it. Just look at it. Let's look at the thing.
Let's see. What's Baby Bear doing?
Baby Bear.
Baby Bear. Why are you making me go on this? Why?
I can take a screenshot. Just read the screenshot.
It's pretty great. Why isn't he?
Can you post that on Blue Sky? I don't think you can.
I think you can. Why not?
I don't know. Are all the OnlyFans chicks on there too? Let me check. I don't know. Can you?
I mean, so his whole thing is he gets to look at that and go, "Oh wow, 90,000 people saw me." And while on Blue Sky, only 10,000 people would see it or whatever. But it's he's got to cut it off, man. It's fueling destruction. The whole world is dying. We doing an intervention? What's that?
We doing an intervention?
Eventually, man. I'm gonna ask him how many Sikh Isles? How many Sikh Isles? How many? It's worse than that. Like, he should be more pissed off about all of the very anti-LGBT Q plus kind of stuff that's been going on. But
I hate to derail you, but how many Sig Heils reminds me of this conversation a lot of people were having in the Black community years ago when the Bill Cosby allegations came out, and people were asking Bill Cosby's supporters, how many Cosby accusers need to come out for you guys to cut off the support? How many? 2? 5? There's like 40 Cosby accusers. At that point, you can make a game out of it.
yeah.
Like, are there more
Yeah.
teeth in a person's mouth or Cosby accusers? Are there more countries in Africa or Cosby accusers? Like how many Sieg Heils? That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, no, I think the joke got in my head because I saw a random joke on, like, this guy was joking online. He was talking about Zendaya and how he's like how white Zendaya is, and he's like, look, if both of your parents are black, you can say the N word, and if one of your parents is black, I think you can still say the N word. But if none of your parents are black, you can't say the N word. So at some point, there's some percentage between 0 and 50 where you can start saying the N word. And he's like, I don't know where it is. It might be 32. It might be 48. I don't know. But whatever number that is, that's Zendaya. And I was like, what? Like, it was such a weird, twisted, roundabout, weird joke. I was like,
I feel bad for John Adams.
I think the thing is, Carmine, you're like 1 percentage below it. Like, she hits it because she's allowed to say it, but you're like 1 percentage point below it.
Okay.
Because you don't get to say it. You're not quite black enough.
True.
Oh. How did Skagos get LR2 first night babies to the others? Oh. That's a very good question. Because what do they do with their bastards, right? Guess what everybody else does with their bastards. Right? Because they were still doing Lord's Right to the... they're still doing Lord's Right to the first night. But how did they get them to the others? Oh, Jonah, this is a great question, and I need to fucking answer this one too in the fanfic. Fuck. You're so right, though. You know what he's talking about here, Carmine? So the theory is that, like, Lord's Right to the first night houses are all the northernmost houses because they have these excess bastards that were produced from Lord's Right to the first night, and so we give those ones to the others through the Black Gate and such as a sacrifice. And the Skagosi are on their island, and they would have to, like, sail to the mainland just to fucking have them passed over.
There it is. You had a super chat earlier. I think it was a super chat or a comment you clicked on about Davos. Oh man, it was such a good one too. About Davos going to Skagos and the dead things in the water being the others. There it is for your fanfic. There it is. And you even talked about it. Davos going to Skagos and encountering something worse than cannibalism.
Yeah.
There it is.
Oh, you're right. Like, give it like the baby sacrifice. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
I'm also trying. So another thing I'm trying to wrap up, another plot thread, is I'm trying to wrap up, like, who the Night's Watch members were that Osha was traveling with, how they met, and why they were traveling together. I would love to know. You know. Like, maybe they're the ones that provided the boats and she, like, took the boat around that bay. And maybe she has a history with Skagos. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm working it through here. Because look, we could argue that, like, if Eastwatch is watched because they're looking for boats, right? They're looking for boats to cross. So, and they patrol these waters. And so how about Osha and some Night's Watch members convinced her to go to Skagos cross Skagos, and then go from the southern tip over, and that's how they got past the wall. Is they did a trip to Skagos and crossed over, so she has a history with Skagos. And then I'm gonna throw in like how she knows the Night's Watch members. And that's why she felt comfortable going back to Skagos, because she has a history there.
Ooh, that's good. Who were the
Yeah.
Night's Watch guys she was with? I know it was two guys. It was Wallen and who was the other guy?
Something
Stiv?
like that. Yeah. Yeah. Stav or Stiv or something like that. Know nothing about them. They're just Night's Watch guys, and they that's it. Yeah. So it'd be nice to know like why, like how she knew them and everything. So I mean, yeah, I think that's it. She has a history of that. That's how she got around the wall. Is that they they went to Skagos and then went around the backs. Maybe they went around the backside of Skagos and then came out or something. But yeah, I think this is a very good question, that they're doing something with their Lord's right to the first night babies. Are they killing those babies, or is there an offering site for those
An offer
babies?
an offering site, and but why would OSHA bring Rickon there?
I think what we're going to have is that there's 3 houses that we know about, that not all the houses are the same. Like one of the houses is pretty reasonable, and the other 2 houses might be fucking crazy and nuts, is the idea. And like super like crazy, religious and such. And that she went to live with one of them, but as Davos finds her and finds Rickon, they get captured by one of the others who are fucking nuts. And that's where we find Davos, like captured by one of the rival houses. She thought she was going to be safe because she had this great experience before with them.
And the Skagosi, they have Rickon, Stark blood right there. Might be valuable.
It's true. Especially, for an offering.
Mm-hmm. There it is. It's coming together.
Oh,
It's coming together. I gotta get Dan back on stream with us. When he's not making Stannis's gay theories, he actually has some pretty good ideas about the wildlings and man specific. So
I mean, I
yeah,
think it's so funny, like the Davos trying to give Stannis a hand job, but he's missing those fingers.
no, but it's coming together. I know you've gotten a couple of
Oh,
submissions for Davos already, right?
I know. Oily black substance, you say, from a shy, maybe? It's possible. We don't, again, these old a shy would have some older secrets, as well. He wants Greenland because it makes up for Alaska, when he gives it back to Russia. That's funny. Oh, there's another sci-fi animated series around the time of Dark Waters with similar depth. I thought it was Red Dwarf. Another amazing one was Cities of Gold. Oh, yeah. I remember the Cities of Gold. Someday we'll find the cities of gold. I remember that one. The Ancient Cities of Gold, is that it? Was that what it's called? Is that what it's called? Mysterious Cities of Gold. Someday we'll find the cities of gold. Send the Conquistador times with Incans having sci-fi tech and aliens. Yeah, so the crystal skull idea from Indiana Jones is actually based on like real history, where we would find where I'll pull one up, but in Latin America, a few of these artifacts were found, these crystal skulls, and people got this idea that, of course, how could these primitive people like make these skulls? And then they were just the alien theory came around, right? But it's ridiculous considering that, like, or the Nazca lines, like, why were they doing these lines? It must have been for aliens. But yeah, so that kind of gets into the Cities of Gold plot too. Where's Qyburn in the Cersei chapter? It's a good question. Good question. He didn't fit in, but I don't really see it much as a like a plot problem, because in the epilogue, like, he was still acting, but he was not on the small council, and he was talking to people in private, and so he had no reason to kind of be there in court. He just didn't fit into the narrative of, like, who she was describing in the room. Oh, and there's Qyburn. Well, he's around, but he wasn't there. Plus, it's kind of good that he wasn't there. If we're establishing that Qyburn has Brave Companions ties, and we're establishing, and it's kind of been established in the book, that in the fanfic already, that Oberyn created the Brave Companions, that Oberyn knew that Oberyn knows Qyburn, so we want to keep Qyburn away from the other Dornish characters that might recognize him. So I think if Qyburn hears Lady Nym is coming, he's like, I better keep myself on the DL, because keep in mind that, like, Lady Nym and Tyene are pawns of Doran. They don't want to be like, why the fuck is Qyburn here? Like, if they know Qyburn and they know he's a monster and he was involved in what Oberyn was doing, they're gonna get real suspicious when they arrive in King's Landing and are like, why is Qyburn here? And so I kind of want to keep that away from, like Qyburn is hiding himself from Lady Nym and Tyene. Though eventually they're going to hear the name. So I'll have to figure that out. Oh, Maga the Frog. I mean, Maga did tell us exactly what they were going to do. It was called Project 2025. We all fucking knew about it. And we Americans elected him anyway. And here it is. Like, they fucking told us. They fucking told us.
This is going to sound very mean, but good, fuck it. I can sleep very happy at night knowing that the people who are going to be the most impacted by Trump's bullshit are the people who voted for him. Good, you voted for this. What's that? Your medicine is going up? Sucks, you voted for it.
Yeah, but I mean, what all these all these women that can't get abortions didn't exactly vote for him. Not everybody that's going to get affected is voted for him.
I know, that's the sad part, but at least he did the Gaza ceasefire. We can be happy about. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. The Gaza ceasefire. By the way, like, first of all, okay, like, the Biden administration is, like, hammering out all the details for months and months and months, and then they request that the Trump transition team come in to help them with the final kind of thing, the final push. And then, of course, like, Trump takes credit for the whole thing, but there's nothing to take credit for, because, one, it's only like a 45-day ceasefire, and they aren't even keeping to it. And, like, there's no there's no hope for the Palestinians after. There's no hope for the Gazans after. Like, what Biden and Blinken wanted was for the Palestinian Authority to take over Gaza, after everything is said and done, and that we support the Palestinian Authority as the new government that would eventually lead into a Palestinian state. Okay, this is the two-state solution kind of situation with Biden. Mark Rubio has specifically said that the Palestinian Authority can't be trusted and they would not be going into Gaza. Trump doesn't believe in the two-state solution. He cut all funding for the Palestinian Authority, like, during his term. Like, it is. So if the Palestinian Authority isn't going to be ruling Gaza, who is left? If Hamas isn't going to be ruling Gaza and the Palestinian Authority isn't going to be ruling Gaza, who's going to be ruling Gaza? This is why Trump is like put forward, well, maybe we'll just turn them all into refugees and shove them into Egypt and Jordan. Like, so yeah. So Maester Wallace is a Blackfire supporter, thus hence Southern ambitions. I mean, that's an interesting idea that we all kind of think that. I mean, different Maesters might have different ideas, but the idea that maybe he wants to bring, Archmaester Marwyn is like, oh, they're trying to get rid of magic, but maybe they're trying to get rid of the Targaryens without special blood, and they want in the Targaryens with special blood, the Blackfires, so that they can get dragons again. Maybe some of them actually want dragons and want Blackfires. Maybe there's different forces working here. That that would be interesting. That at least some of the Maesters are actually Blackfire supporters and come from. I mean, House Hightower was on the fence during the Blackfire Rebellion. They supported both sides, so so maybe they thought, they realized they made a mistake and they wanted the Blackfires back. So many opportunities, so many great opportunities. How exciting! Top 3 ice cream flavors. I mean, we got to go from I know the Ben and Jerry. What's the one that don't the Ben and Jerry has like a vanilla brownie? Something like that. A lot of them are, like, all the Ben and Jerry ones are fucking great. That Stephen Colbert Americone one was really fucking good. I mean, I love me some Rocky Road. I'm more of a chocolate caramel person. I'm not so much into like mint and in ice cream and such. But I mean, how can I choose? I want to say, oh man. I mean, if I'm really picking shit, I'm gonna say like something turtle related, like caramel nut pecan kind of thing. Like, I'm sure there's something like that. A Rocky Road. I think I swear there used to be like a blonde brownie or caramel brownie or something. Those are all fucking great. But I don't eat dairy anymore, so it's kind of done. So I'm sorry, guys. These things you didn't know about me. I avoid gluten, soy, dairy. So it's any chance of the Kamala stream coming back? I mean, if you want it back on, I bet it's old stuff on there if you want. It's but one of the reasons I took it off is I didn't want. Did I do that one in America? I have to check if I did that one in America. But I don't. I'm not supposed to be using my channel because I'm in government housing for advancement of a particular candidate was the idea. George R. R. Martin is a big fat fucking liar. He's just overly ambitious at times. COVID was great for me personally. COVID was fantastic for me personally. Horrible for the world, but for me personally, not having to go into work and getting to spend more time with my kids was great. I loved it. It was really nice. Government employees should just keep making the deep state real out of spite at this point. I know, I know. The problem is that there's a lot, like, you got to understand that, like, the middle managers kind of people, like, can be real cowards sometimes. Propaganda is Canadian. No one cares, bro. It's true. Propaganda is Canadian. Are Canadian. Is Canadian? Are Canadian? Center right economic. This is about Democrats. Center right economic policy, not raising the minimum wage. No, I mean, for the most part, Democrats are neo Keynesian. They are for raising the minimum wage. They just can't ever get it fucking done. It's been part of their platform for years. They're always looking to raise the minimum wage. Whether they're successful is the thing. I mean, for instance, universal healthcare has been part of their platform for 60 years. They were able to get Obamacare through, but like certain things are part of their platform, like straight up, and have been for a long time. It's just whether they're successful or not. I think a lot of people like buy into this thing, like, because it's right-wing propaganda that tries to divide us, that like, well, actually there's no difference between them. Oh, actually they're just as bad. Like that's all fucking right-wing propaganda, like that like filters in and people start believing this shit. The right wing is very good at is very good at their propaganda, and they're very good at changing the conversation and make people start using these terms. Like I know left wingers who will use words like, well, the border crisis, and I'm like, there's no border crisis. There's zero border crisis. There's no crisis at the border, but you'll still see like, Channel 5 like will use that term when he went down to the border because it's been made part of the dialogue because the right wing framed it that way. But I don't think there's not much right wing about their economic policy. Like, first of all, right wing economic policy, all right, is in this country is tax cuts for the rich no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's a bad economy, tax cuts. If it's a good economy, tax cuts. Like, they're no longer looking at like stimulation in a fiscal stimulus sense. They're just like, no, tax cuts. All the time. Like that's their policy. Like which isn't an economic policy. It's just a tax cut thing. There's no idea about fiscal stimulus. It's the same with like they'll constantly be like the right wing will constantly be pushing for lower interest rates, regardless. Like it doesn't matter if it's a good economy or bad economy. It doesn't matter if there's inflation or deflation. It doesn't matter. Always they're just the same note. While left wingers actually believe in economics, so like there's nothing like I don't understand like the center right aspect. There's nothing right wing about the Democratic Party because the right wing in America is fucking nuts. Like they're fucking nuts. There's nothing. I don't even know like what is right wing economic policy. There is none. They don't believe in economics. They just believe in tax cuts. Do we think Congress is going to do tariffs? It's always going to hurt the economy in the long run. Yeah, doesn't matter. The people are stupid. They're really fucking stupid. These people are really dumb. Preston sounds stupid here. I don't usually agree with him. I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. I don't even know what you're talking about. Are we talking about? Was it my talk of propaganda? Was that it? We're talking about a veil. Which thing? We're talking about when I was talking about how what percentage of black Carmine is? Oh, the Garfunkel thing. Is it the Garfunkel thing? Garfunkel thing was fucking genius. Ned and Howlin' Reed are Simon and Garfunkel. It's fucking genius, man. the political compass with the axis of economics and the axis of authoritarian liberty is more useful than just saying left right. Thoughts? Um, so no, I don't think it's useful at all. Because I don't think the right wing in America has any economic sense. So I don't think there's any like idea for it. But what he's talking about is, and this is, I don't think the political compass is useful. People bring this up a lot. They're like, "What are you?" And then they like try to put on. Oh my god! They try to put on like different people here. That there's a libertarian authoritarian axis and there's a left and right. Okay, all complete bullshit. Okay, this is the dumbest thing. I've seen this my whole life, and it's so dumb. Okay, because when you take like libertarian, okay, there is not a single libertarian in office. There's people that claim it, but it's always the Democrats' policy that they're libertarian, for. It's always like, oh, are the Democrats for healthcare? Well, oh no, that's too much government. Libertarian. But if they're like, well, increase military spending, well, that doesn't count. Well, that doesn't count. What about controlling women's bodies? Oh, all of a sudden, all of a sudden they're authoritarian, right? So the authoritarian libertarian thing is dumb. Okay, there's no libertarian libertarian is just when it's just your code when like I just don't want their policy, so I'm going to claim it. I'm just going to claim it because of the principle of libertarianism. Doesn't fucking exist. Like real libertarians don't exist, and libertarianism is stupid. But they just pull it out for policies they don't agree with, and then they're completely authoritarian on anything else. So it's like this is this by itself useless fucking axis. Okay, Ron Paul, no, this guy was anti-abortion like all over the like no like right. This axis, the authoritarian libertarian axis, is useless. Now let's talk about the left-right axis. Okay. Now, that axis is also useless because the right doesn't believe in economics. The right has no belief in economics. Okay. Any economist, any modern economist today, like if you're a neo-Keynesian or a neoclassical, okay, would be against tariffs. Okay. Like there is no economist that thinks tariffs are a good thing. None. No serious economist. Right? So where is this fucking coming from? The right wing in America wants tariffs. There's no economist who would say that like blindly we should just lower taxes and lower interest rates at all times. And yet that's the right wing's position. Okay. So it's illogical. Like it's illogical. Like the political compass should be like rational people. It should just be rational and irrational. That's the only fucking thing on there is rational and irrational. You know, do you see the world in a secular sense or do you see the world in a religious sense? Do you see a world in an economic sense or do you see the world in a I'm going to do stuff and hope kind of sense? Right? Like when you think about all the things that like the right wing is into, like feeling from their gut, hate, anger, emotion, right? Being slighted. It's all just irrational thought. So that's the political compass. It's just rational and irrational. There is no this is the most useless fucking like, oh my God, the authoritarian libertarian thing is the most useless fucking thing. It's so fucking useless. Okay. There's no politician who is a fucking libertarian. And I don't even know if there's a voter out there that's for libertarian. You know, like there's a fucking few weirdos that you meet in college that like think they're libertarians until they fucking like take 5 minutes to think about it. Oh gosh. No, political compass is the dumbest thing, man. It's dumb. It's just rational versus irrational. Rational is Democrat Party. Irrational is the Republican Party. That's it. And then there's your degrees. That's it. because I mean, in the sense we had like prior to that, the Francis Fukuyama, we had like an end of history like position that everyone kind of agreed for a second in the 90s was like the right way to like go forward in the world, right? Like we have this, we've all kind of agreed that it's like a mixture of social programs and free market, and that there shouldn't be tariffs and trade barriers, and we should worry about human rights, but balance that with like thinking about the economy, and like there was this rational position. And then somehow we moved away from it. Somehow we got to like Trumpian world of just like making shit up and cronyism. I mean, maybe it's not really irrational. Maybe it's just cronyism. Thank you, Treebeard. Is Preston 55? No, he's 5'5". Yes. He's actually very short. It's true. Preston's 6'8". I'm 6'6". I'm not 6. I'm not, but yes, I do fit in. Yeah. It's when I get into cars, pull the lever all the way back. It's very simple for me. Very simple for me to get in cars because it's just there's one set like all the way back. That's my car seat. Can someone tell me why sunflower seeds taste like peanut butter? Don't all nuts taste like peanut butter? All nuts kind of taste like. This is the funny thing about like has anyone about the Nazi salute? Has anyone met anyone in real life that like tried to defend it? Because I'm just like you like all you got to do is be like, okay, then do it. If it's not so bad, like just do it. Like do it for me right now. Do it. Like do it at school.
People were in
do it at work.
Ben Shapiro's comment section because Ben Shapiro was defending it, and people were in Ben Shapiro's comment section going, "Okay, Ben, then do it.
Then
do it right now.
Yeah,
then do it on video
right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, did you see the bullshit right wingers are trying to do right now? They posted pictures of Obama, Hillary, and Kamala supposedly doing it as a picture, but they didn't post context. And then a video came out of them doing context, and it's not.
Look, there's a big difference between an accidental wave and someone like hitting their chest and then forcefully going ooh out. I mean, we all saw like Nick Fuentes' like response to it. Nick Fuentes was 100% correct. He's just like, nah, dude, that guy went full on. Like, I mean, when all the Nazis are like, no, he definitely did it. Like, I mean, as much as I hate Nick Fuentes, like, I do have to admit, like, he can be funny and like entertaining, and I think that's why he's successful.
The funniest thing he's ever done is when the RNC was going on during the election, and that woman from East Asia or I forgot where she was from. She was doing the prayer, and he starts flipping out. Oh my god, he just starts flipping out.
Yeah. Bro, we should have tried to pass like a single payer system. He tried. These things were tried and floated. Okay, keep in mind that like the history of Obamacare is that when Clinton got into power, he had both houses, and so it was Democratic Party, and he was there, and he tried to pass it, and and it all got derailed, and then he got. There's a huge Republican takeover. And so there just wasn't popular opinion at the time for it in America. And then by the time Obama got into power, the public opinion kind of shifted. Now America is much more open to the idea of socialized medicine. Certainly socialized health insurance. And so when Obama got into power, he was able to and the thing is, Obama had 60 senators. Like, he had a huge amount. It was still hard for him, and so they had to make all sorts of. He watered it down, and people say the Republicans played him. They essentially were like, were like, oh, well, if you change this, we'll vote for it. And then he changed it, and then they still didn't vote for it. So, I mean, it was a lot of bad faith people that he was bargaining with. But, they tried, but there was there's no Reagan care. I mean, there was no, Reagan didn't pass anything, like but that's, he did what he could. Obviously, I would want I wanted to go further, but they're still trying to repeal it. Trump's going to try to repeal it again. You know. Yeah, right economic policies to cut taxes for the rich and then use the taxes from the rest to funnel in the companies of their own. Yeah, I mean that's true. The thing is that they also Republicans spend more than Democrats, so you kind of have the situation of Democrats. The joke is they're tax and spend fine, with the exception of Bill Clinton. I can say fine, Democrats are tax and spend, but Republicans are borrow and spend, and they actually spend more. So they cut taxes and then they spend even more. So we go into massive debt under Republicans. So tax and spend versus borrow and spend. But whatever. I don't necessarily think that big debts are that big of a deal, but I mean, I don't know much about Glass-Steagall banking regulations, but I don't see much wrong with NAFTA. I mean, I like NAFTA fine. NAFTA's free trade. I like cheap avocados. I'm all good. No, NAFTA made exporting jobs easier. I mean, most economists said that we had a net gain of employment from NAFTA. Some people question whether or not now with China setting up shop in Mexico, how that shifts. But for the most part, we had a net job gain after NAFTA. And keep in mind that U.S. employment is doing fine. What's the U.S. unemployment? I mean, everybody's like, oh, all got me a job. Our unemployment rate is 4% in America. What are fucking people complaining about? People taking jobs. You can't. Generally speaking, you don't want an unemployment rate below 3 because you're talking hyperinflation at that point. But when unemployment is 4.2%, what more do you fucking want? Jesus Christ, other countries have 25% unemployment rates. Jesus Christ, 4%. Oh, they're taking American jobs. There's plenty of fucking jobs. You're all employed. I know everybody's no, there was no sucking sound. All the studies said that we had a net job gain from NAFTA. Fuck this. People just believe this shit. You can just say this general shit. They're oh, people are hurting. This is why they wanted cheaper eggs. No, they didn't. They didn't fucking want that shit. They didn't fucking want it. Okay, all that's fucking bullshit. They
Remember those Biden stickers that said "I did that" all over gas stations? I hope there'll be some Trump stickers saying "I did that" for egg prices.
Yeah,
I better start
exactly.
seeing them. I better start seeing them, just in time for bird
No,
flu.
they won't. They'll somehow blame the Democrats, just like they did. I mean, if inflation was the reason, I mean, Trump caused the inflation because of fucking COVID, right? And then somehow it's Biden's fault for fixing it, and not fixing it fast enough. I mean, come on. That's their thing, is they're gonna fuck everything up, and then when Democrats don't fix it fast enough, they get voted out again. You know, like literally Trump fucked the Middle East. Trump started the fucking Gaza situation. And then people, and then your boy on Twitter is like, fucking genocide. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry that he didn't fucking fix Israel Palestine fast enough for you, motherfucker. Jesus Christ. Could you fix Israel Palestine? I'm sorry that Biden didn't fix Israel Palestine fast enough for you. Oh, I guess we should have Trump give everybody free reign to do genocide. Jesus Christ. Like, this is the problem, is they're just gonna fucking blame the Democrats no matter what. They're gonna somehow take what the Republicans did and then somehow blame the Democrats for it. I love Hyperion by Dan Simmons' opinions. I get asked this a lot, actually. I haven't read it yet, but people like every few streams somebody asks me about Hyperion. And so you're not alone, Green Day fan from Montana. You're not alone. Did Nick Fuentes bang Destiny? I don't think so. Though that would be pretty funny if they did. I mean, I don't care if they fucked, whatever. People can fuck whoever they fucking want, but you know, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was. What do you think, Carmine? You think that they had? Do you think they had that three-way?
I have no idea. I don't know anything. I didn't see anything. I have no idea.
Yeah. When is Berserk with the boys coming back? I'll try. We'll contact Trey and try to get one done this week. NAFTA was building up China, not progressive policies. Well, I mean, I don't understand why building up China. So again, rising tide like raises all ships. Like, doing something economically good for China is economically good for the United States. They're a huge trading partner. They buy our shit. Like, we buy their shit. Like, I don't understand. Like, you get this idea that like helping China is somehow like a bad thing. I mean, keep in mind that for a long time, people believed that as China developed, they would get more information and then they would find out about the rest of the world, and then the people would rise up and change the system. Like, this was the idea. Okay. That you know, internet and such was unstoppable. The world would the rest of the world would come flowing in, and the Chinese people would see how everybody else has democracy. Why don't we? And they would like demand it. Hasn't really happened, but keep in mind that this was the prevailing theory at the time, that like economic development would lead to democratization. Through the 90s and the early 2000s, this was like the idea, because it was happening in Eastern Europe and Africa, where these countries were getting better standards of living, and then all of a sudden they were like, we want democracy too. And so people really thought like, hey, the best way to like help China is to let them economically develop, and then they'll demand like more rights. Okay, this was the whole idea. So this idea that like, oh, like our job is to like be at war with the Chinese at all times, and that's the way to like help Chinese people and to liberate them, is to like knock them down economically. I don't see how that. I mean, I don't. At best, at the end of the day, we just learned that like economic development doesn't help them like have more freedom, but it hasn't caused them to have less freedom. You know, China isn't becoming less free; it's just staying the same. I mean, Xi Jinping is taking on another kind of like level, but like taking on another term, but that's weird. And we fear, you know, encroachment on Taiwan. But like, you know, this idea, like, I think you should like step back and be like, why, like, what good, you know, is like trying to trash like a country economically. Now you try to do it when you want to change their policies, right? Like, you give it, you know, like Russian sanction, like they invade Ukraine, you want to hurt them economically so that they'll eventually stop doing that action. But the question is like, what action are we trying to get the Chinese to stop? Ask yourself that. You know? You know, you want them to have free and fair elections? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? Like, what is China doing that you're just like so fearful that you want to stop trading with them? Like, what is it? What is it? You know, you could be like, well, they sometimes scare Taiwan. Well, we believe in the one China policy, by the way. Like the United States policy is that. Like, you know, so like this was the idea for a long time, and people believed it. You know, so I don't know. Free trade is a good thing. Okay, free trade's a great thing. I mean, look at it another way. Would you want trade barriers between like here in Texas? Like between like New York and Texas? Like, would you want to put up a wall and then charge people a toll every time they like pass merchandise through a wall between Texas and New York? And if you say like no, well that's different. It's the same country. Like, well, why? Why are those national borders like a big thing? Like you're just like, well, I want my people on my side of the wall to have jobs and them not to. But actually, free trade creates more jobs on both sides. Like it's more prosperity on both sides. I'm not going to stand down from like this very like obvious economic fact that free trade is a good thing. Okay. Like, and when people say free trade is a myth, free trade agreements unfortunately have a lot, and I somewhat agree with you in that free trade agreements have a lot of caveats where they're like, well, we free trade agreement, but milk is not that's an exception. I would love a no seriously free trade agreement where it's just everything, no exceptions, free trade, plus environmental regulations and labor regulations in there. Okay, I would love, that's my dream, right? Free trade agreement with environmental standards and labor standards, and all tariffs zeroed out. Okay. No exceptions, no fucking exceptions for your goddamn socks or your milk or whatever. And no seriously free trade. Like that's what you want. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Democrats under Obama derailed most of the social media. I mean, it was the Republicans that. I mean, there's a lot of arguing amongst themselves. Again, like there are plenty of like Democrats that a minority, but there's plenty of Democrats that try to be centrist. Okay, but the vast majority of them, like if you voted in, here's the difference. Like when people say, "Oh, the Democrats aren't what they claim, they're just the same as Republicans." Okay. If so, Obama had majority of the House and a majority of the Senate. Say theoretically, he had 80 seats and 75% of the House. Well, all of a sudden, there's none of these fucking like people trying to derail here and there. You don't have these mansions and cinemas and whatever like fucking things up. Okay, you don't have these mavericks. Then you just get everything passed, and you get exactly what you want, and with no compromise. So really, the argument is try to give them an overwhelming majority to try to get everything you want. You're kind of like, the criticism of the Democrats is, fuck, they couldn't get what we gave them a razor thin majority, and they couldn't get anything passed. Oh, great. And when I say razor thin, like you need 60 votes to get things passed, right? Because of filibuster. It's not just majority. You've got to get 60, right? So they had 60, I think. So if you had one fucking defection, you're done. Okay? So now if they had fucking 70 senators, Well, it doesn't matter if one or two guys defects, right? So it's not about like everybody's like, oh, the Democrats didn't do this and this because you didn't give them fucking enough seats. Okay, you don't give them enough to do, and of course they fucking fail. This is the same with anything. Like this is how Republicans like destroy like government too. Like we underfunded them, and then they couldn't get the job done, so they've proven that they're incompetent. So we have every reason to like cut funding again, and you're like, but you didn't give them enough money. Like that's why they failed. Like you didn't give them enough representatives, thus they fail. Like who would argue the reverse? Who would argue that if Obama had 70, that he wouldn't have gotten everything he wanted? Instead, everyone's like, oh, they didn't give us what we done because they only had a tiny little majority. They had 60 on the dot. They couldn't get a single defection. LOL, sanctions did not work on Russia. Well, you're right. Not yet. I mean, sanctions, we do what we can, but we don't have the reason sanctions don't work very well on Russia is for a couple of reasons. One, US doesn't trade that much with Russia. We don't trade that much. So our sanctions are not that effective. That's a leftover from the Soviet Union. Like the US and the Soviet Union had very little trade for years and years and years and years and years. Okay. And then we had like a good solid 10 years of warm relations, and then things started souring again, right? So one, we don't have that much, so it's hard. But two, like in order for sanctions to work, you kind of need every country in the world to do it too, because you know, if I'm looking for a burrito and Chipotle isn't selling me a burrito, I can just go to Qdoba. This is the same thing with trade, okay? Oh, the US is refusing to do business with me. Well, I can just fucking go to India. I can just go to China. So, like, yeah, sanctions don't really work that well. Now, is Russia hurting economically? Absolutely, they're hurting economically. Absolutely. We're trying to fucking, to get them to change their behavior. But you're right, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked yet. Hopefully it's a yet, hopefully. China's helping Russia, though. We've built up a power that can resist our efforts. I'm sorry, dude. Like, did you not know that, like, China had the power to resist our efforts, like, for like, nearly a century? Like, do you know who we were fighting in the Korean War? Do you know who we were fighting in the Vietnam War? Those were proxy wars, okay? We were fighting China. In the Korean War and the Vietnam War, we were fighting China. Like China was supplying North Vietnam. They were supplying the Viet Cong. China was supplying the North Vietnamese, okay? So like they have the power to resist us. They've always had the power to resist us. China has always been a huge power. Like that doesn't changed. Thoughts on Fourth Wing, Dragons and Penetration? I don't know what Fourth Wing is. A novel by Rebecca Yaros. Oh. Fourth Wing is a new adult high romance fantasy. Romantasy. Oh. Book is in some of the Empyrean series. First book. Interesting. Well, she cannot have a sexual relationship without becoming emotionally attached and will only sleep with him if they're willing to risk his feelings. Oh my. I mean, I haven't read this, but I'm all for romance novels, whatever the ladies like. I'm not a China hawk, but I acknowledge without them, Russia couldn't be doing what they're doing right now. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, like if you're saying like buying artillery shells specifically, would somebody else have produced them and they would have found them on the market and things like that. It's also a lot of it's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking. Like, you know, at the time in the 90s, um, with Jiang Zemin, like, did things seem like did things seem like they'd be where they are now in 2025? Um, it's things change fast. Things change fast. Like I say, like we were buddies with Russia in the 90s. But things can shift around. But when it really comes down to it, is there is an indescribable amount of wealth that Americans experience from doing trade with China. I mean, you can look at all the products that are made, and you got to buy them cheaply because they were made in China. And when they weren't made in China, they were made in someplace just as bad, like Vietnam. So it's yeah, and that's a moral question that we all have to like bear. Uh, but you got all your shit, you like the consumer got all of his shit. Um, you know, if you want more expensive, like the thing is you can't win here, right? If do you want more expensive shit, like stop using Amazon. We can stop the horrors of Jeff Bezos and all that. You know, you don't have to buy stuff from China. You can try not to. Okay. Free trade with Mexico, normalizing trade with China, basically meant American manufacturing was able to be exported. New job markets was all cheaper, less well-paying services, while Mexico and China created a lot of unsafe and slave wage jobs to produce manufactured goods. Um, Now, as I said, I would love for free trade agreements to have included in them um, uh, labor law, like caveats. I'd love that. I would. Now, but if I'm going to defend free trade agreements and that, is that we don't tend to find like labor jobs becoming less um, safe. Usually, you've got a bad standard and it stays bad, but it's very rare that you have a good standard and then it drops down. I mean, maybe you could like make an argument for like Amazon or something like in America, but I don't know anyone who would say that like Chinese labor standards have gotten worse. Um, Also, this idea of like creating jobs, like the job means that like if a job is created, that means like a product is being produced, which means you're consuming something. So at the same time, you're saying, oh, it's really horrible that this job was created in China, but then you're not looking at the benefit of that product that you're getting to consume in America. And inversely, like conversely, like that person in China now has money to buy American stuff, like and that which then creates the American job to go back and forth. Um, so I mean, jobs are created everywhere. Like that's the whole thing. Everybody talks about in these general sense, like, oh, we're we're exporting jobs to China and stuff like that. And you're like, not really, not really, because another job is created behind. When they have a job, they have money, they buy your shit. A job is created here. Um, what that kind of idea of like a job being exported, it applies to like very specific factories and businesses. Like you can say like, okay, looking at the Kansas City situation in America, that a company can move from from Missouri to Kansas and back and take advantage of the states. And you could say one state is losing the job and one state is gaining the job and such. Like you can kind of do that on a micro level. But when you start talking about whole nation states, like having jobs and job creation and the trade between them, it's a huge amount. There's a huge amount of complexity, and Chinese buy American shit. Like they're buying American shit all day long, just as we're buying American shit. We're buying Chinese shit. We get nice, cheap Chinese stuff, and then we get to take that cheap Chinese stuff and manufacture it or change it into something high paying and then export it too. Like everything shifts like that. It's not so simple as this narrative of that our jobs are getting exported abroad. It's just, I understand that it's like it's a nice soundbite to people because it seems so simple, but it's not the case. It's we have like complicated economic markets, so it's just I don't know. Anything with economics, like the joke in economics is like on the one hand this, on the one hand that. Like you've got these huge like markets, like complicated markets. The answer is communism. Maybe. I have no idea. I have no problem with like look, I've told you many times that Scandinavia is the way to go. The Democrats didn't even force a filibuster, though. I won't forgive that. Republicans peeing into cups to stop the public option didn't happen. It was a different time. I mean, the filibusters were still in place. The Republican Party, the reveal of the evilness of the Republican Party has been a slow thing over the, starting maybe 50 years ago, starting with Nixon. But just, becoming completely masks off with Trump. But like, it's like wishing the Democrats were more ruthless. Yeah, sure. I wish that too. But, we got what we got. What we really needed to do at the end of the day, everyone's like, oh, it's the Democrats' fault. Had we voted more Democrats in, we wouldn't have had this problem. Had we voted Democrats in greater numbers and more often, we wouldn't have had this problem when it comes down to it. So when you say like, oh, it's the Democrats' fault, no, it's the fucking voters' fault. It was our fault as Americans. Like it was our fucking fault. As Carmine, like this is the thing is like with this is the difference about this election is that Trump didn't trick us. Trump told us exactly what he was going to fucking do. We had Project 2025. We were all told. We were all fucking told. And Americans didn't elected him anyway. Okay. And like blame the Democrats. The Democrats just do what we fucking did. Like the Democrats will do what we want if we vote them in. But we end up like voting them in with like sometimes with razor thin margins, and they do all this great stuff for us, and then we forget it. Like Biden's infrastructure bill, what? Oh, I just forgot it. What has he done for me lately? We're spoiled. As Americans, we're spoiled fuckers. We're spoiled fuckers who expect the Democrats to like save the world with these razor thin majorities, and somehow fight off the most evil people in history. And, that's it. That's like, all you got to do is fucking vote in some Democrats and vote them in great numbers. That's all we had to do as a society. And we're all sitting around going, oh, the Democrats no wonder it's so great that, the Democrats got what they deserved by not getting voted in because they didn't magically pass all of the laws I wanted to pass. I'll argue the Democratic donors wanted something different than their base. I mean, both affect elections. Come on, I mean, but both kind of get what they want. But it's sometimes the base wants something, and sometimes donors want something. Um, because China violates sanctions. I mean, I don't know, like what, how, why is China required to sanction Russia if they don't agree to? That's true. Ted Kennedy died, and that was the problem. Why they didn't public option. Yeah, you're right. I do remember that. We were down one senator after Kennedy died. Yeah. Ted Kennedy was really, I mean, as people make all these jokes about Chappaquiddick and everything, but as a legislator, he was a really great man. Um, you can all say that, oh, maybe he murdered a girl, maybe he let a girl die. I don't know, but his years and years in the Senate, he did a lot of good. Um, China as a country does not hold U.S. debt. It's mostly just individuals. I mean, the U.S. Treasury bills are held by a lot of different people. I don't think it's a bad thing that China holds U.S. debt. I don't see any. I don't see like people holding debt having sway over anybody. When the North forgets, Skagos remembers. Huh. Maybe I will think about this line as they're the ones that are really like still sacrificing to the others. Carmine's off like doing his laundry or whatever, but I like that we figured out some stuff with. I'm glad that we talked through the Skagos thing.
What do you mean? I'm right here.
I know, but I know.
We can continue on. I would like to have Trey in the conversation too. I'm sure he's got some great ideas. People really like the Davos stuff. They always have like a lot of ideas for it.
Our jobs are created from paper, yeah, or treasury bills. I mean, if you want to say. It's the Democratic voters' fault, and especially the Democratic non-voters' fault. Yes, and the Republican voters' fault. Can we blame them too? Can we? Can we blame them the most? um, mm. The it's 100% useless to blame voters. It doesn't help. They won't change their behavior from that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's gonna look. I don't have the answer on what's gonna work in the future. I don't like. I don't know how to save America. Okay, I don't. Like I wish I could lie to you and be like, oh, I've got hope, and we all just need to fight and resist and stuff like that. Like I don't. I wish I had that, but I don't have I don't have any hope anymore. I mean, and this is very similar. Like I say, I think it's very similar to a like morbidly obese like person wanting like that the person needs exercise and salads, right? Like it. And the salads aren't appealing enough, and the exercise is too hard. And like I think that's exactly where we are as like America. Like, and you know, I don't think blaming the Democrats for like not being appealing enough is like where it is either, because it's like blaming the salad for not being tasty enough, you know, for like the morbidly obese person. Like maybe it's just a real fundamental fault with like the human nature and how susceptible we are to misinformation and selfishness or whatever. I mean, people have brought up like the ice cream theory. Pop Culture Detective has a thing about the ice cream theory about like, look, humans are inherently good. I mean, if you watched and saw a person like push a child down and take their ice cream cone, you would think that person was psychotic, right? So therefore, humans aren't inherently selfish, that they're altruistic. They can be altruistic. And you know, it's like I you know I wish like we could be more altruistic. I wish we could form our Star Trek society where everybody like cares about each other and pursues truth and things like that. But it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I don't know how to save America. It's the thing is they have offered real material change. You know, the Dems don't offer real material change. No, they've offered that. They've offered that, and they weren't voted in. They weren't voted in any large numbers. Like, you know, like when when Democrats had the large massive numbers, then we started like this was under Johnson, and that's when we started getting things like the Civil Rights Act and real like progressive change in America. Lyndon Johnson, by the way, was probably the best domestic president. Or maybe very bad foreign policy president, but like probably the best domestic president. Like there were some real great changes under Lyndon Johnson, or like when you start thinking about like the majorities that Franklin Roosevelt had, and the positive change that happened under him. Okay, those came from massive Democratic majorities. Okay, that's what's needed, and we got Obamacare because for a moment we did have a pretty good majority there, you know. But when people only give like these razor thin majorities and expect like the Democrats to do magic, like just fucking like, you know, it's a lot easier to destroy than it is to create. And so like Trump is going to be able to destroy everything a lot easier than he'll be able to. Why do you think Trump had gains with minority groups in the election cycle? This is pretty minor at the end of thing. Keep in mind his gains were very minor. Okay, like when you look at the numbers, Trump hardly gained. Like Trump's numbers from his previous election were almost the same. The difference was not as many people coming out for Kamala, right? So yeah, it was but his gains from minority groups, he didn't really gain. He gained like percentage wise, like when Kamala's numbers go down compared to Biden's, like the ratio changes. So I don't think but if you're really talking about like minority groups, like lots of people are self-loathing. You know, a lot of minorities are religious, you know, a lot of minorities are sexist, you know. So
I gotta push back on that, my love. You know, I love you. I have to. You're gonna disagree, but that's because I hate to use this term. It's so cringe, but you're a white male, and I say white as in WIGHT. Latinos. I can only speak to Latinos. Black people, by the way, if you look at how they voted, they were trying to save us from ourselves. So black people, as usual, trying to save us from ourselves. But of course,
oh no, I mean, I fully admit that like the only people that I think that can save America are black women.
Of course,
they're the only ones that understand. They're the only ones that fucking understand. Um,
But let's be real here. This is something that
it-
white liberals refuse to understand about Latinos, which are the biggest minority group in America, is
yeah,
that we've always been conservative. We've always been
yeah,
more religious than you guys. We've always been more like crazier than you guys in terms of everything. Like Latinos have always been this way. Puerto Ricans love Trump until the Tony Hinchcliffe thing.
yeah.
But even then, like no, Hispanics love the bullshit. There was I'm not gonna say the person's name, but there was this South American Game of Thrones YouTuber who decided to stop doing it. And they're from the South. They're from South America. It's not me, by the way. I swear to
Mm,
God, it's not me.
yeah,
And I think I showed you the screenshot. This person was praising Trump's win, despite them being from South America,
yeah.
living in Canada. They were praising Trump's win. Latinos and their fascists. They just love them. What are you gonna do?
So Maxwell makes a very good point in that. So there is a huge. There are two things to look at here, actually, with the election, and that is the swing states versus the rest of the country. So really, one can say like, oh, the huge drop in millions of votes from Kamala to Biden. Um, that's true only on the whole nation, but the whole nation kind of doesn't matter. Only the swing states do. And so when we really look at the election, Biden, despite having an enormous popular vote lead, barely won, razor thin margins in all of the swing states. Meanwhile, Kamala dropped down in the popular vote a bit, still only lost the popular vote by what, 1%, 1.4% or something, very low. But still, in the swing states, turnout was huge, and she lost by razor thin. I mean, I think it was she lost by like half a point in Wisconsin, like 0.7 in Michigan, 1% in Pennsylvania. I mean, these were razor thin numbers. So we kind of did. I mean, if you're really saying like, okay, America fucked up, we went from razor thin to razor thin. That in fact, the election shift was not very much. But it shouldn't have been fucking close. Like, it shouldn't have been fucking close in either election. Like, we barely had Biden win, and then we barely had Kamala lost. Well, it shouldn't have been fucking close. It shouldn't have been fucking close. Like, Americans are fucking idiots. But yeah, I mean, I think all of these specific stats and these demographic trends, I don't know. I don't know how useful they are, but um, we keep thinking that demographic shifts are going to save us, and I don't know. But yeah, I mean, gerrymandering causes some problems in Congress, and voter suppression. I mean, there's been a long history of voter suppression to kick Democrats off rolls and things like that. I mean, those all get into it. But considering the Republicans' message, it shouldn't be close. It shouldn't be close at all. Um, Awful campaigners. Trump is an awful campaigner. Like, these awful campaigners, they're all off. Trump stood on stage and fucking jerked off did the jerk off sign to like YMCA with no energy from state to state. Okay, like
Correction: jerking off two men
yeah,
to the
sorry, yeah,
YMCA.
you're right, yeah,
Of course, please.
but yeah, gerrymandering. I mean, gerrymandering doesn't have a role in the presidential elections except for the states themselves, which are, you know, give bad, but Trump still won the popular vote this time. So yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about like these state to state kind of things, but 29 point swing from Latinos. I mean, the previous guy was Beto, who spoke fluent Spanish. And then the previous guy to run against Ted Cruz was Beto, who was super popular. Spoke fluent Spanish, went by a Spanish name, was from versus like I mean, I think this time Ted Cruz ran against a black guy. Of course, Latinos are going to vote for Beto O'Rourke. Like, they love that guy. I mean, so I can't read into
Are you
like the
saying
29%
Latinos?
split there. Yeah.
What are you saying, Preston? What are you saying here? Are you saying Latinos are a little racist?
Oh, isn't everybody? except for black women. Except for black women. Besides black women, isn't everybody fucking racist? Oh my god. Oh god, you've. I hope. Well, you've thoroughly all depressed me. You've thoroughly all depressed me. Americans are greedy and selfish. Yes, yes. So I don't know. Do I literally believe the Republican voters have lower IQ than?
Yes.
Uh, I do, but do I think that's significant? Like, I don't think that's. I think that cultural. I look. It's beyond it. Like, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt that like there's a correlation between IQ and education levels. Okay, and higher education levels are associated with voting Democrat. Now, do I think that that is the decisive factor? No, there's bigger cultural factors from state to state. But yeah, of course, of course, when it's proven statistically that like more educated people vote for Democrats than Republicans, that they have a higher IQ. Of course, that's true. Like, there's not. That's just like factually correct. But I don't think it's like that necessarily that large. Like, do I think do I think if you ran the numbers it would be more than like 1 or 2 IQ points? Probably not. But like, and I also don't think it's like the overwhelming like deciding factor. But like, if you're asking like straight up, like, are Democratic voters smarter than Republican voters? Yes, of course. That's like a very demonstrably true. Like, demonstrably true. Now, but again, I don't think it's the deciding factor on who wins, and I don't think it's probably going to be a huge amount, but it's just like, but that's just demonstrably true that Democratic voters are going to have, yeah, so they agree. They're like, okay, fine, 1 or 2 points. Oh, who's talking about getting banned? Who's been banned? No one's been banned. I haven't banned a single person tonight. This is crazy.
Preston. Come on.
I
One
never
guy
have
said
a
the
stream
N-word.
where I never ban anybody, right? I didn't ban anyone.
That's not true. You banned a couple of people. What do you mean? What about that guy that said he voted for Jill Stein? You banned that guy.
Not today. I didn't ban anyone today.
I think it's just the one time you do it and they're gone.
Yeah. Is someone that eats shit smarter than someone who does not? Poor AOC. She's really grown as a politician. She's a much better speaker. She's so savvy. She's got a great future. She's also just she's learned a lot as well. But anyway,
can you believe people voted for Trump and then also voted for her?
What's that?
Can you believe people voted for Trump and then also voted for her in the same time? Can you believe that?
Yeah, she called him out. She's like, "What are you fucking doing?"
You know what? I kind of get it. Like, the people were replying to her and they were saying like, "You guys are the only ones talking like a real person." And okay, like, that's stupid, but I kind of get it.
Stupid,
I guess.
Well, that's the thing, is most people vote on vibes. There's a lot of like, there's a few of these, YouTubers that go around talking to people where they're like, okay, you're a Trump voter. How many branches of government are there? And they're like, can you name a single piece of legislation that Trump did that you agree with? And they're like, so it's all vibes. They're voting for charisma. I mean, it's personal charisma. I think Trump has like incredible negative charisma to me, but somebody demonstrably likes him. So no, I've never met Trump. I've met Biden. I've met Bill Clinton. Um, I've walked by Hillary Clinton. Trying to think anybody else I've met in my life. Can't think of can't think of anybody else that I've like that I've really met. You know. Oh. Oh, you're a feminist. Name every woman. Whitney Houston. Or name a woman. That would be right. You're a feminist. Name a woman. See, I would say you're a feminist. Name the most important thing to feminism. You're like, what's the most important issue to feminism? And then if they say like reproductive rights, then you'd be like, okay, like that's it. What I think is funny when people are like, when you ask, like, I'm sure if you asked like the quartering or nerdrotic, like, what's the most important thing to feminists, they'd be like, putting girl bosses in rings of power, or something. So. So Carmine, any last things? I've been on here way too long. I got to go to bed.
Really? You just got here. Well, come on, what do you mean?
I know. My kids are going to be waking up in like 3.5 hours.
Why would you stay on this long then?
People got me worked up, man. People got worked up.
Whenever before I used to do this all the time before. I'm saying this to the audience. When we were supposed to record a podcast, this was years ago. I do it every now and then. I don't know if you catch me. I can sense when you're a little like sleepy, so I'll bring up, hey, remember that one time that one guy said that thing about you, and you're like, oh, that fucking guy. I gotta get you fired up for a podcast.
Yeah.
But any other topics? No, I think that's pretty much it. I'm down to do Berserk and the Boys whenever you want. We just gotta get Trey.
Yeah,
he would have joined tonight, but he's doing a podcast with a friend of his.
Okay. He's not on a date. Not on a date.
To my knowledge, no. We would know. He would have tweeted about it.
That's true.
Trey, if you're listening to this, I
love you. All right. Okay, I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks again for everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.